Okay, we have a special guest, Peter Jones, Australian PGA Tour player. Interesting that Peter and I played on the tour down there when I was playing on the tour. I played, let's see, 80, 87, 88, and let's see, 89. I think I played, yeah, four years down there, and you were down there from what, 82 to 91. So we were playing down
Yeah, I
there on
probably
the
wouldn't have played the. I
together.
would have just turned pro or became a full PGA member after I finished my 3 year apprenticeship in 80, midway through 82. So I would have been dabbling around and then started getting a bit more fair income into the 4 round tournaments probably in 85, something like that. And then I would have played all the way through until about 90 to 91. I was starting, my game was going pretty pear shaped then, and I thought I'd better get myself a real job. And
Fair
pretty
dinkum. I
much to
haven't
here we
heard
are
that in a
now. And
while.
then still loving the game. We've got what they call a Legends Tour over here now, so over 50s tour. And the last 18 months I've been playing quite a bit of that, searching for my game. I'm sort of out here stubbornly looking for it because the background to it was I played reasonable and worked my way through it about, I think 21st was the best I finished on the Australasian PGA Tour, Order of Merit 1 year, and then progressed to getting my European Tour card and went over into the school. And in those days, the 21st got me into the final stage of the European Tour school, which was 6 rounds in La Manga. And I can remember going over there and they gave out 50 cards. I finished 43rd, so I got a card. And I can remember playing first 3 events. I actually ran ninth in my first European Tour event, 25th in my second, and 17th in my third. And then I didn't get a game for 6 months. I came home. My number, there was no re-rank or anything, so I came home after
Wow.
winning, about 10,000 quid or something. I thought, this is all right.
Yeah,
And then, sorry,
we
yeah,
just talked briefly about the situation, how it was set up on the Australian tour with the Monday qualifiers, and how if you made the cut, you were automatically in the next week. It didn't matter what the tournament was. If the next week was the Australian Open, you're in the Australian Open. I
that's
think that
that's
happened to
correct. Yeah.
me. Yeah, that happened to me. I think I was playing in I made the cut in Perth, I think, at the West Australian Open. The next week was the Australian Open in 87, and I'm in the Australian Open. I didn't
Beautiful.
have to qualify or do anything. It was really great. I really like that system much better because you could play your way onto the tour, and if you were playing good, you just keep playing,
Yeah,
right
for a
on
young guy
through.
coming through, it's a brilliant system, isn't it? Where, if he's got a bit of a roll and he gets into an event and then he makes the cut, and if he keeps playing well, he continues to go through. And I think it's a brilliant system. I understand why it went to tour schools and things where you need to be playing good for 1 week, but well, for a certain amount of rounds, don't you? But I
Yeah,
think this
the
was a
the
better system in the old days.
PGA Tour was like this here in the 50s and 60s, I think, and the 70s, and then it went to the all exempt tour, I think sometime in the late 70s or early 80s. I think it was a mistake. I think it's best to have the players that are playing best at the time. Like who's playing good now, right now. We want who's
Sure,
playing good, not who
sure.
played good 6 months ago or 8 months ago.
Sure. There's a bit of talk on the Legends, the old boys tour out here at the moment. We've got a lot of like a small pro-am tour or a small tournament tour with the Legends, and they do about 80 events a year. It's great fun seeing all your old mates, and there, some of our good players now are yeah, a bit miffed because they've just closed off the Legends tour. Sorry, the Champions tour, haven't they? The tour school's no longer, and there's no pathway for a lot of the Aussies to get into that now. So they've closed that up, and a lot of the guys are wondering what they're going to do.
Yeah, I'd heard about that too. Yeah, obviously a lot of changes in golf since we were playing. We emailed each other a little bit, but one of the stories, that we would share and that I've told many, many times is the incredible story at the Australian Open in 1988 on Sunday at Royal Melbourne when the wind blew so hard that it was blowing the balls off the greens
Off the
and they
green.
actually canceled the round because of the wind. And
Correct. 100%.
I think I had shot 84 that day, and I was low in my group. And like Mike Ferguson shot like 90, and he was one of the top players down there. I mean, it was just totally ridiculous. And I went out to watch Greg Norman play after I was done. He was number one in the world at the time, and I was there when he hit a putt. He had an uphill putt, and it went past the hole. It didn't hit the hole. He missed, and then the ball rolled back down past his feet and off the green, and he just picked the ball up and he walked in, and he was leading the tournament by 6 shots or something like that, and he just
Yeah,
told us,
I
"Caddy, we're
must
just out.
have.
We just walked in, right?"
I must have been off around a similar time to you, maybe just after you, and I probably must have been an hour and a half before the Greg Norman was out there playing. And I was very severely downwind. It's a shortish par four, and I knocked it on the back of the green and four putted there. And I thought, what's going on? I didn't realise what was to come. Knocking on the green and four putting, you think, what am I doing? That's crazy. And then as the wind picked up, it just got worse and worse, and the day ended up being cancelled because of the wind. The craziness it was.
Yeah, so as you know, then there was that player and official meeting in the locker room or the clubhouse, and I was there at that meeting, and you were there at that meeting.
I was
So
there
we
at
were
that
in the
meeting.
same room, and I've told this story because it's an incredible story about Greg Norman. And Greg said, because the question was, should we just call it a 3-round tournament, crown Greg the champion, because he was leading
Yes,
by
that's right.
6 shots or something like that. And Greg stood up. He could have just kept his mouth shut, and they would have handed him the trophy probably or whatever, and most people would have been fine with that. And he spoke up and he said, "No, I want to win this fair and square. I want it to be a 4-round event. Let's play tomorrow." And I remember there being a couple of young pros that were saying, we have to fly out on Monday for the European Tour School in I think Spain or
Yeah,
Barcelona, if I
I was
remember
one of
right.
those. Yes, yeah, that's
And
right.
yeah, and then you were one of those, and I've spoken about you over the years. Um, there were, and Greg said, I I'll fly you guys up to Tokyo so you can catch your
He did.
connector flight over
He
to
did.
Barcelona after I'm done playing. And I just thought to myself, how cool is this guy? I mean, he doesn't have to do that.
That's
The
true. Yeah,
fact
I
that
was
he
very
would
good of him.
look out for the young players like that. And he was heading back, from what I understand or remember, he was heading back to the States the next week, and I think he was living in Florida. It's not like Tokyo is right on the way back to Florida,
No,
you know,
100%.
from
No.
from Melbourne. The fact that he did that, offered that up, I just thought, this guy's the real deal. I mean, what a great human being. I've had great respect for him ever since.
Yeah,
Really
it certainly
fantastic.
gave me great respect for him at the time. I hadn't played with him until then, and I played with him after, and it certainly gave me some respect that he would do that. And then a lot of the guys over the years have had a few issues with him, found him a bit arrogant over different things, but I've still found him to be very good. I can remember playing with him in our biggest tournament one year, the Palm Meadows Cup. It was a big event run
Yeah.
by the Japanese, were
Yep.
putting a lot of money in, and Curtis Strange, a few of the Americans came out, some of the big Japanese. Jumbo, who I just see passed away recently, he was one of the big stars. And I played with Greg in the third round, and I never forget. Steve Williams was his caddy at the time, and the 11th hole was a par three. It was about a 7-iron. The kids are probably hitting a wedge in these days, but it was about a 7-iron. And I left it in the front trap, and I remember I just thinned the ball out a little bit. And in those days, you got to the green, you picked it up, and just showed your partner, I've marked my ball. It's a Bellata ball. It was just the given. Yeah, no worries. Change it over. Well, I can remember Greg sending Steve Williams over to check the ball out, and I thought, no one's ever done that. That just seemed a bit strange at the time to me that he would do that. That
Yeah.
was my only sort of coming together with Greg, other than that I found him a gentleman. And I could see it was very hard for him. He's number one in the world. Everybody wants a piece of him. There's so much of his time was taken up that he could have been out practicing or doing whatever he particularly wanted to do. So I still had a lot of respect for Greg.
Yeah. Well, he was, my first year down there, I was 23 years old. Came from the Canadian tour, got, exemption to go down there and play because of my Order of Merit in Canada. I flew down to Australia. Didn't know anyone down there. I mean, there's no internet, there's no cell
Long
phones. I
way
mean,
to
I
go.
just, I land in Sydney and, get in at 2 in the afternoon, and I'm just ready to go to sleep because it's like 2 in the morning
Sure.
or something or whatever my time. And I remember just getting on finding a pay phone and putting in some money and then calling the tour office and just not knowing where to go or what to do or anything. And a rental car, I'm driving on the wrong side of the road, right? I mean, for here,
Yeah.
on the and
Sure.
I get this rental car. There's no instructions. Nobody takes me around the block. The steering wheel's over on the right side. They just will just stay. And I mean,
Throwing you
I'm
in the
in
deep end.
downtown Sydney, and I'm trying to figure. It was just so crazy. And I finally get out to the site, and I registered. I think it was I want to say Riverside Oaks was that the course, I
Yep.
think.
Yep. Yes,
That's where the
that's a good
tour
drive
office was.
from Sydney Airport or from the centre of Sydney. That's a good hour and a half. I would have thought a good hour and 20
Yeah, and
minutes.
I'm driving out there myself, and I got my card and my badge and pin or what and whatever stuff schedule, and they're like, oh yeah, well you're gonna qualify over here, and I think that's where I qualified, and then I'm in my first tournament was the Australian PGA Championship at the Lakes. All of a sudden, it's kind of like the big leagues. I'm seeing Ian
Nice
Baker-Finch is
course.
walking by,
Nice
and
course. Yeah.
these big stars and stuff were down there, and
Well,
the second
Finchy.
week the second week was the West Australian Open at the Grange, and I think I shot 67 on Saturday, and I'm tied with Greg Norman going into the last round. And
Fantastic.
I had a rental car that broke down on the way to the course, and I had to hitchhike to get to the course. And as somebody that was attending the tournament, saw me with a tour bag, and they picked me up, and I gave them some passes, and I get to the range, and I'm warming up my caddies. You're late and all this, and then this helicopter comes in and lands on the range, and the doors open, and Greg Norman with his entourage and his manager and sports psychologist or whoever, whatever is, like 4 or 5 people get out of the helicopter, and he comes to the range, and he's hitting balls right next to me, and I'm like, I'm coming in hitchhiking in broken rental car, he's coming in on a helicopter, but yet we both are getting ready to play Sunday's round in
Fantastic.
the South Australian Open, and it just is incredible, really. It's an
You
incredible
mentioned Finchy
experience.
there. I stayed with Ian, and this is before he'd obviously became very famous, but always been a good player. We stayed together for the Singapore Open. He missed the cut, so he said, "Look, I'll caddy for you the last 2 rounds." I said that'd be great. So I sacked the local caddy I had in the Singapore Open, and he caddied for me for a couple of rounds, and then somebody said, "How was Ian as a caddy?" I said, "Oh, he's no good for me." I said, "Why not?" I said, "Oh, he's seeing all these shots with the fade. I'm trying to sling my little drawers in there." But he was fabulous, and I can always remember saying to him once he won the Open, "Congratulations, not bad for a caddy." I said to him, "A champion, an absolute champion guy, Mr. Finch, Baker-Finch."
Yeah, wow, that's yeah. And I remembered, I looked a lot like Ian Baker Finch when I was down there, and we had the similar height and kind of facial features. We looked similar at the time. Our hair
I
was the
bet you didn't.
same,
I
and
bet you didn't putt as good as him.
no, I didn't. But I would have these kids, would come up to me and ask for my autograph, and I thought, well, that's kind of weird, like why are they, And then I would sign my name, and they'd look at it like they were disappointed, like they didn't understand. And then the parents were there, like, "Oh, we thought you were Ian Baker Finch." It was funny. I even think I for a couple little kids, I even signed his name just to make them happy or something because I knew they weren't getting my autograph, so I just put Ian Finch or something just to send them off and with a smile on their face. But yeah, that was incredible experience to play down there.
Oh,
Um,
we've got some good golf courses. We really do have some really good golf courses, good tracks down in Australia. Obviously, there's a lot of mixed courses, but we do have some really good golf down here.
Yeah, people talk about Melbourne being the sand belt courses and all that. Certainly great courses, but there's really some great courses around Sydney as well.
Sydney, Adelaide, where you were talking earlier, that's there's some great courses down there. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and then then over in Perth, Perth was such an interesting place because it seemed like it was a newer development or city over there. Then,
Yeah,
Sydney, you had a lot of old history you could tell, but in Perth, it seemed like that was kind of like the new frontier, and it kind of reminded me of the west coast of the United States, where like San Diego was kind of a newer sort of city, compared to
yeah,
New York or something.
yeah.
And the golf courses over there, we played that Caranup, right? Is that
Oh,
Caranup?
Lake Carrinup.
Lake
Very nice
Caranup?
course. Yeah, Lake Carrinup.
Yeah, I mean, the kangaroos jumping around on the course or out on the course. I mean, I couldn't even believe it. I'm, hitting a shot down a fairway and there's like, six kangaroos jumping across the fairway or whatever. It just seemed, like out of a Disney movie or something. And,
Yeah,
they're really
there's a lot of
cute and everything.
courses
But
around Australia that have kangaroos. Lots,
yeah,
lots.
and we were warned, not to get close to them because they could get really aggressive and, actually, physically hurt you or something,
They
so
can. They're
you
pretty
kind
strong.
of
Yeah, they get up on their
be
tail and they've got big
respectful of
claws
them.
on the
They're
front.
not
Yeah.
not like a Disney movie, where they're just, oh, let's go, pet the kangaroos or something, It's
A lot of
just,
places say if you've got your pull cart within your bag, they're not as bad. But if you're just walking up to them, they can get more aggressive towards you.
yeah. And then there was that, what was the course, over in Perth, that had it was built out of that quarry, that old
Oh
quarry.
yes, 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 yes. Uh, Good course. They got 27 holes there.
Yeah, that was, what was the name of that golf course?
Joondalup, Joondalup.
Joondalup.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was the craziest golf course. I mean,
it was made
crazy, a
from
a nice course, but
an
very
old lime
difficult.
quarry. I think it was an old lime
It was
quarry
a
there.
line. Yeah, and I remembered the greatest up and down that I've ever witnessed was Brett Officer, right? You know Brett, right?
Sarge, yeah, I do. Yes,
Yeah, so I'm playing with Brett, and there's this par three. I don't know if you remember that hole went downhill, and on
yes,
the right was like a cliff that was up like 100 feet or something. And
yes.
it was
It's
just off the
huge.
side of the green. Like it was the green, and then to the right side of the green there was a cliff that went up like 100 feet. Brett hits his ball right, and it's up on top of that cliff. I mean, he's like 100, like 100 feet down, and it wasn't out of bounds or even maybe it was a hazard. I don't know, but he actually climbed up there with his caddy, finds his ball, and he's literally, he can't see anything, and he just like kind of wedges this thing off this cliff, comes down like 100 feet, lands on the green, he makes the putt and gets up and
Gets it
down.
up
And
and
I just
down.
thought that's one for the ages there.
Yeah, no, there's some good
Yeah,
golf
that
now, and I
was.
think obviously since I haven't been to the west for many years now, but there's a lot more newer courses over there. It's a good golfing venue over there in Western Australia now.
Yeah, I remembered, my friend, Chris Moe. I don't know, did you ever meet Chris Moe? He was
Yes,
American playing
yes,
down there.
yes,
Yeah, so
yes.
Chris and I were, hanging out after the round, and we went to the beach down there in Perth, and we're looking out over the ocean, just thinking that the next landmass, I think, like straight across would have been like Africa or something. I mean, it would have been like all the way, because I think it would be lower than India, right? So just if you just went right across, I mean, it was just to think, how much ocean, there is between Perth and say, Madagascar or
Yeah, it's crazy.
Africa. I mean,
It's
it's
crazy, isn't that where they reckon MH370s off there somewhere?
yeah. Yeah, and I mean, how would they ever find that plane if they don't? I mean, there's
They've
so,
just they've
just
just gone out
thousands of
again.
miles.
They're doing a 55-day thing at the moment. I think they're just going out now to see if they can find it again or something. They've got some more submarines or something. So wow,
Yeah, I mean,
that's a
how could
massive
they
area,
ever,
absolutely
maybe the
massive.
technology at some point, but it's thousands of feet deep, and yeah, I don't know. It's just what a horrible, horrible tragedy that was.
So I've been very
Well,
interested
tell me,
watching
tell
a
me a
lot of
good,
your
tell me a good Billy Dunk story.
good Billy Dunk story. Well,
Yeah.
you obviously don't know my game at all. For Billy, I actually played my first ever pro am event when I came through as a young fellow with Billy Dunk, and Billy Dunk is an Aussie legend. He held many course records in Australia. He's one of his legends. That he's done so many course records around the place. And I played my first ever pro-am with him. Lovely guy. And about 3 months later, we were at one of these country pro-ams, and he's doing a clinic. He did quite a lot of clinics before the pro-am event, the day before, and he said for their members, he said, "Would you come and demonstrate? I like the way you swing the club. Would you come and demonstrate while I speak?" And I said, "I'd love to, Bill. That'd be great." So hitting a few balls, had a bit of a warm up, hitting a few balls, and Bill's going through uh, a few things about the swing and asked me to hit a fade. And I'm a sling drawer and everything, so hit this little shot up there and it goes with a little draw, and he says, no, I want you to hit a fade, Peter. So here's me trying to hit another fade, another little draw. So took me about 4 goes, but I finally got one for him. And I was about 18 and a half, I reckon, at the time. I'll never forget it. So that was my first introduction to Bill.
Yeah, I interviewed Bill years ago, through Bradley Hughes. Brad and I became, good friends and ended up teaching together and stuff for, well, that's a whole crazy story, how that came about. But he hooked me up with Bill Dunk, and I had heard, when I was down there, I was hearing about all these players, great players down there. Back then, again, there's no internet or anything, right? In the 80s, I mean, it was
100%.
just
Yep.
word of mouth, what you read in golf magazines. I mean, I'd never heard of Peter Senior. I mean, I'd never even heard of him, right? I didn't know, had no idea who he was. And what was it in 87 or 88 when he won 3 tournaments in a row down there?
That'd be right,
What
yes.
year
That'd
was
be
that?
right.
Was that 87?
I think that might be one of the Aussie PGA, the Masters, and the Open. I think the three big ones. Yeah.
Yeah, he won 3 in a row, and Greg Norman's playing in all those events. So Greg Norman's #1 in the world, and he's playing in all those events, and Peter Senior's beating him by 6 or 7 shots every tournament. And I'm like, who is this guy? How come I've never heard of this guy? How is it possible that I've never even heard of this guy that's just waxing the #1 player in the world week after week after week? And then, I went and watched him hit balls, and he had the most piercing ball flight. I mean, it was
Yes.
just
Yes.
hit that low dart out there. I mean, it was really impressive. And I went out and watched him play. I mean, I don't think I ever saw him miss a shot. I mean, it was just like I was watching like Ben Hogan or something. I mean, he was just an incredible ball striker. And
Yeah. No, he's
and
one.
I
He's an
got
Aussie
some.
legend. You know?
Yeah, I think I'm in my teaching and my swing beliefs and stuff. I kind of believe all paths lead to Hogan, really, if you're going to get into technique and all that. But I don't think I've ever seen anyone swing more like Hogan than Peter Senior. I mean, as far as through the strike, like coming from
Yep.
in to the ball and beyond, his finish looks different. But his rotation, his footwork, like everything is so much like Hogan, and he hits it like Hogan. I mean, it's just
He
and
gets up through it so nicely, doesn't he, with that and that high
yeah,
posted
he's got
finish
that
that he
kind of
gets.
lurching up kind of finish, but I think that's what you want to do also, actually. I mean, you don't want to finish, completely around,
Oh,
like hip
100%.
high on
No,
the
I
fair. I
agree.
think you're better to swing flatter on the backswing. But Peter Senior I just couldn't believe the scores he would shoot. It's one thing to read scores that people shoot, but when you're actually playing in the tournament and
Yeah.
and you have maybe, I never did play with him. He was one of the few guys I didn't get to play with down there. But
He had such great
I'd be teeing off
determination.
the front nine and he'd be off the back nine, so we're at the same time. And then I'd come in and I played like really good and shot 70, and I'd see he'd shoot like 64. And I'm thinking, how did this guy beat me by 6 shots out there? I mean, where's 6 more birdies out there than I just couldn't even understand it. I couldn't believe that somebody could be that good at golfing a ball.
He
It
had
was
such
really amazing.
determination whenever I've played with him, and his scrambling ability. If he did hit a bad shot or a wayward shot, he could always manage to get out of trouble and get up and down and not let it worry him. And he could go low. He could shoot a lot of low scores and did.
It seemed like he would shoot a 64 or 5 almost every week, one of the rounds. If it wasn't the first
Because you,
round, it
you,
was
you
the
could have
third.
even said he was a dodgy putter at times because he went to the the broomstick. He copied Sam Torrance's broomstick there when Sam Torrance went in years ago. He copied that in Europe, and then uh, he still plays a little bit with us on the Legends Tour. He's now using the pencil or the whatever you want to call it, like this now. He seems to putter right because they pretty much banned the anchoring side of it, so they took that out, and he's doing that now. But he used the long one for a long time towards the end of his career and did well with it.
So here's a yeah, you would have seen his swing from the early days on through the senior tour. I saw some video of his swing years later when the gear had moved to the lightweight clubs, the long and lightweight and all that. And he wasn't nearly as tight going through the ball as he was with the heavier stuff, with the persimmon and heavier clubs. And I just wondered, if that's an example of a guy that maybe with the lightweight gear, it just didn't quite
Very, very interesting. That stuff
work
really
as
interests me.
well.
I can remember I did a few Mac O'Grady schools out here. A good friend of mine, Terry Price, who's a very good player and
Very
played a lot.
price, yeah, yeah.
He brought Mac out here, and I went to a few of the schools. And I can always remember the very first school I went when Mac. We first day we got on the range, and he had his bag with Mac had his old clubs with the persimmon driver and weighted irons and all that. And he asked, he hit a few balls with his driver, and very nice flight. And obviously, me being an older person, I saw that sort of lower, stronger flight that he had. And he just grabbed one of the guys that was at the school, and he said, "Give me your driver." And I think he had a ping driver at the stage, and this is 10, 12 years ago probably now. And he just teed up, same swing, and the different flight he got with the ping driver, just launched another 20 degrees and carried another 70 yards down the range, I think, with the same swing. Not saying that better or worse, but it was just interesting when see someone like Mac hit the two different drivers and the different flight that they produced.
Yeah, I mean, I harp a lot on the modern driver that I think it's the one club that I think the USGA or the RNA should have probably reined that in. Um, I know you would obviously cricket is huge down there, and they're still using the willow wood from what I understand at the
Yep.
pro level.
Yep. Yes.
And the famous story when the guy came out with the aluminum cricket bat in '79 and they just banned him right on the spot. They said, nope, no
Correct.
way, right? And then, our sport, American baseball, they're still using a wood bat.
Using
Nobody
that's right.
complains
Yep.
about that.
Yep.
The wood bat, what it does in baseball is it maintains the integrity of the game as far as the parameters. If it's wood,
Yeah.
the Yankee Stadium and all that, the fences don't need to be expanded and all that. And I think golf, it wasn't a problem early on with the early metalwoods. Like you would have remembered, like the tailor-made burners and all that. The
Yeah.
early
Well.
ones, they hit just the same as persimmon. They didn't go any farther. They didn't because those clubs didn't have the trampoline effect, right?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
and one of
I
the,
can remember playing actually with Ian Baker-Finch in the New South Wales Open. He just got the tour burner, and he had 6.5 degrees, and I thought, how I couldn't believe the low loft on it. And honestly hit it with a horrible flight. I thought it was this big ducking flight. I thought it was terrible. I thought, I hope that's not the way of the future, but maybe it was the way he was hitting at the time. But they certainly took off. That was early days for those tour burners. I remember them, and they certainly different lofts and low lofts in some
yeah,
of them for
they
a
had a
short
lower
period.
center of gravity. They were lower center of gravity,
Yeah,
so you could have a little less loft. I mean, lower center of gravity would get the ball up. So they take
yeah,
loft off, and it was giving it a little bit different flight. It wasn't, people weren't hitting them 30 or 40 yards farther.
no. I agree with you. I mean, it would be great to send some guys out nowadays with some persimmon woods and a set of ram tour grind irons and go and play golf and see how they went.
What clubs were you playing back then? What kind of blades were you hitting?
But I was using Max Fly Australian blades.
So I was on the Max Fly staff also. So we had to have seen each other with the Max Fly bags down there. We had to have. I mean, I know we
Well,
did. I mean,
the best ball we played would have been the Max Fly HT. That was the best ball in the world at
that's
the
what
time.
That's what we were playing. In fact,
Yeah.
it's funny because I just posted a video where I did some ball testing in a lab in San Francisco, and I tested. I've been trying to find a ball that spins more, more like the Balatas, and somebody told me to try this Callaway Chrome ball, Callaway Chrome X Chrome or something that's a highest spinning ball. And I thought, well, I'll try that. Took that with a Pro V1, and then I also took a 1970s, early 70s ladies golf ball, a flying lady with the old dimple pattern with the tiny
I
dimples
remember
on.
them. Yes, yes, yes.
And I tested those balls, and then I also brought an HT Balata, a Maxfly HT, because that's what I played on tour, and I still had some old balls, that were from the rep that I just never got around to using after I retired. So I brought those down to test, but of course they've lost their, the windings are
Yeah,
shot after all.
yeah,
They literally are like sponges now. They're just useless. So it's kind of funny that, so we would have been getting our balls from the same tour rep back then.
yeah.
Now I was hitting the Pro Special blade. Did you ever hit that one when it was the next evolution after the Australian blade that came out? They came out with a Pro Special.
There was a DP 100, DP Maxfly DP 100. Does that ring a bell? DP. Now I was a
No,
progression.
that might have come, yeah, after.
A
Well,
lot of the Japanese stuff we were using. Japanese Maxfly
yeah,
stuff was very
probably
good.
the Japanese releases, yeah. But I love the Dunlop stuff, and trying to think who else was hitting Dunlop down there. I want to was Ian
Craig
Stanley using
Parry.
Dunlop?
Craig Parry is a
Craig
good friend of
Perry,
mine. He's
yeah, Craig
playing now.
was. I want to think was Ian Stanley hitting Dunlop
I remember he could have been. I
or
think
Bob Shear maybe.
Bob Shearer would have been. Brad Hughes might
Yeah,
have
I think
been doing some of that too in those days. He might. Norman was playing
yeah. So
Spalding in the
let's
Tour edition,
yeah, and the
and he was
tour
using the
edition
Tour
was a pretty
edition
high
ball,
spinning ball for a solid core ball.
which nobody really rated, but he seemed to do well with it.
Yeah, well, obviously he did well with that ball. Let's talk about David Graham a little bit. David Graham, one of the greatest Australian players, right? Hall of Fame. I mean, won a couple of U.S. majors and Australia. He did win the Australian Open a couple times, didn't he? Or at least once.
I think he won once. He was a little bit before me. I'm now 62, just recently. Uh, he's a little bit
I'm
before my time.
62 in a couple days. We're the same
Yeah,
age.
there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
No, I
So
haven't
I
played with
got.
David Graham.
Did you ever play with David Graham?
I haven't played with David Graham. I've met and chatted with David, but I haven't. As he pretty much left Australia and obviously concentrated on the US and lived over there and has been there pretty much ever since. So obviously he did come back and play a bit, but he was a little bit more before my time.
Yeah, I got paired with David Graham down there in the South Australian Open, and I got to play with him. And he was kind of a hero of mine when I was growing up as a kid. David Graham. I liked the way he played. He was a very precise guy. Down the middle on the green.
Yes,
It wasn't
yes,
overpowering the
yes.
courses. Just and he had the reputation of being this kind of precision machinist kind of guy that just everything was about. His clubs were just set up all really perfectly, and
He won the US
the
Open doing that, didn't he? Won the
won
US
the U.S.
Open
Open and the PGA
by just
Championship.
striking
And he gave me some advice. So we're walking down this was my rookie year down there, and we're walking down the fairway on the ninth hole, and I'm walking next to him, and I asked him, I said, David, I said, this is my first year out here on the tour. I said, do you have any tips for me or advice as a young player? And he looks at me and he said, I do. He said, if you're not winning, you're not making it. You know, and it
Yeah.
was pretty harsh. It's like, well, I just got out here. This is only my second tournament out here, so maybe I'll try and win this week if I can beat you. But but I mean, that was it was just pretty. He was very like kind of what's the word? Kind of very stoic, very stoic kind of guy, just like,
Yeah.
John, if you're not winning, you're not
Mhm.
making it. And it was good advice because, he was right. I kind of feel like if you were playing, the Australian tour, Japan, Canada, South America, South Africa, I mean, if you weren't kind of winning on those tours once in a while, you're not going to make it.
Well, you're not
I
going to
don't
make it to
think.
the big time mate, at all. No
Yeah,
chance.
and he was just
Chance.
right about that. It was very, very wise, good advice. When I did retire, I just kind of remembered what he said. I didn't feel like I was winning enough to really stay out there. Kind of like what you went through. You got to a point where you're like, I'm just becoming a
Yeah,
journeyman player.
obviously I got my card in Europe, and then I did okay, but didn't get enough games, and didn't just missed out on keeping my card, and went back and missed the following year. So as I mentioned, Terry Price, what am I going to do about my game? And Faldo was winning everything at the time, and Ledbetter was the flavour of the month, and Frank Nobilo was a good friend of mine, and Mike Clayton. I don't know if you heard of Mike Clayton. They were good mates, and they
Yeah,
said,
I played with
"You
Mike.
you
Yeah.
guys want to go and see Dennis Pugh in England? He's Ledbetter's right hand man."
Okay.
Terry and I totted off, and we spent quite a few weeks with Dennis, and over a long period of time. And I can remember Dennis was lovely. I sort of back up from that. I did go and see an Aussie coach here in Australia who Elkington was probably grew up. A guy named Alex Mercer was a well-known coach in Australia, old school coach. And I said, "Look, Alex, my game's really gone off. Can I come and see you sometime?" He said, "Well, I'm very busy, but I'm going up to the Blue Mountains, which is about an hour and a half's drive. I've got to do a clinic up there, but if you want to come up before I do the clinic, I'll have a look at you and see how we go." So, that'd be fantastic thing. So I can remember being very excited going up there, waiting for him. He turned up and we met and had a bit of a warm up. And he says, just stand a bit closer to the ball. All right, felt a bit uncomfortable. He said, "Hit a few more. How's that feel?" I said, "Oh, I can get used to that. That's fine." He said, "Okay, that's it. You're done." I said, "Excuse me." Pardon? Here's me, a young guy, thinking, I'm going to get all this good information now, and just stand a little bit closer to the ball. And that was the information. I went away very disillusioned from that. And then, as I was trying to allude before, we went over to see Dennis Pugh, and he's in a course in the UK there, just outside London. It's an old barn or stable that's been really set up nicely, and the flavour of the month was all video. There was no launch monitors and all that, so everyone was using video, which is the latest and greatest thing at the time.
Sure.
And just to go out there, talk to the guy, see his setup, get video, go into his studio and get shown all this stuff, I thought, hallelujah, I've arrived. This is what I want to do. I want to be here. And Terry and I we had many sessions there, and then after a while Terry said, I'm out, and I stayed on a little bit longer, up to about 18 months, and I was starting to hit a lot of the positions, because I suppose it was all with videos, a lot more positional stuff we used to do in those days, and found that I was hitting a lot of the positions, but I was hitting it all over the place. I couldn't play anymore. So I had to say, I'm out too, Dennis, that's it. And to this day, I'm sort of struggling to get back anything, because I worked on this for so long, of opening the face, getting it on plane here, where I used to get the club inside on the way back, which now I can see is fine. And it just destroyed me, to be honest. And I look back and
Well,
think
let's
of...
talk about, what did you learn from Mac O'Grady? You said you worked with Morad a bit, and, I had a kind of
I went
exposure
to,
to that.
to three schools with Mac. They were 2-day schools that we had up in Queensland, Australia. That I was very impressed with all that. I was a club professional at the time, so I'd finished all play and probably been a club professional for about 10 years. I was very interested in swing for coaching, and more for myself, obviously, of trying to see if I could get my swing back to where I thought it should be, and certainly could be. And went up there, and it was a lot different. It was so different what I'd been doing with Dennis Pugh. But I didn't have the time to really get into it those days. I was, 6 or 7 days working as a club pro, long days. I didn't really have the chance to put any of that into work. And It's only the last 18 months now I've had a bit of time to try and do a bit on my game. But Mac, I enjoyed it, but what would I say? Found it, the connection side of it a little bit, I found a little bit difficult, I suppose, would be the fair point.
Yeah, I mean, so what year was that you were working with Mac stuff?
I reckon it'd have to be 2010 or 11, 12.
So
Would that
fair, I
sound
mean,
right?
more
Does that fit
recent,
in?
I know it's not that recent, but
No,
it
no,
wasn't like in the early 90s or something.
no.
Yeah, okay. Because I
Only
know
10
Mac
or 12 years ago.
completely changed his whole approach, I think, towards teaching. It became very much more kind of almost like a stack and tilt kind of a thing where it was, you know,
Yes,
he wasn't doing that when he was playing his best golf. He wasn't swinging like that at all. I mean, it was totally different. He changed his approach towards it, and I mean, I kind of tend to want to look at the results. I want to see the best ball striker at his prime, what he was doing. Like if I'm going to study, Hogan, I want to see what he was doing in the early 50s or something,
yeah,
more than I
sure.
would, what he's doing in this Coleman video or whatever when he's 75 years old or something. Not that there's not a lot of great information there, but I mean, what I'm going to really focus on. Same with Peter Sr. What I saw in the late 80s with that golf swing was mind-boggling to me. I'd never seen anyone swing the club that dynamically before. Greg Norman, in the late 80s, what he was doing, the way he could hit a persimmon driver in
He
the
drove the
80s.
ball
He's
very
using
well.
the club 30 years old. He was hitting a McGregor. Was it an M403? Is that what he was using?
It was a McGregor. I'm not sure of the model though.
Yeah, early 50s McGregor, and he's hitting these towering drives. I mean, when he wanted to hit one, he could fly at 300 yards when he wanted to.
He drove it well, and
Um,
his long irons were very, very good too. He's exceptional long iron player. Because those days we all carried 1 and 2 irons, didn't we?
yeah, I did. I always carried a one iron my whole career. Well, like Royal Melbourne, what I remembered about that, the composite course. So I think of in the 10 par fours typically on a golf course, right? Four par threes, four par fives, 10 par fours. Remember there were like six par fours there were in US yards. I mean, I think there were six par fours over 440 yards.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I mean, it was just crazy. It was just long irons in all day out there. And that's again the guys that would do well on that golf course were the guys that could hit great long irons, like Greg Norman and Peter Senior, and these people that were great long iron players would play these courses well. And that's what I miss about golf now is I don't get to see that. I don't get to see the top players in the world hitting long irons off the fairway into par fours anymore. They hit wedges in
It's
from
true.
everywhere. And
It's true. Very true.
I'm just people call me old fashioned or traditionalist or whatever, but I just really believe that a proper game of golf, a proper championship golf course of the 10 par fours, you'd be required to hit, let's just say three or four long irons, meaning two, three, and four iron, three or four mid irons, five, six, and seven, and then three or four short irons, eight, nine, and wedge. So
Yeah,
in
it's
theory,
a
you
great
would
mix of
use
holes.
all of those clubs in a round, all of them. You'd use a two iron, a three, a four, a five. You could play a round of golf where you would have to hit every single one of those clubs into a par four. That's why the holes are different lengths. I don't think it's crazy to believe that that's the way golf is meant to be played. That's why the courses were set up that way. That's why the ball was set up to go 250 yards off the tee. We all drove at about 250. Our
That's
long
right. Yep.
drives were 270. Our miss hits were
Yep.
230. When we
Yep.
really bombed one, we'd hit one 300. But our average drive was kind of in that 250 to 260.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
on
Yep.
that,
100%.
yeah, and what's happened to the game now, it's an unrecognizable game from the game that we were playing. I mean, it doesn't
There's
even.
that famous Hogan picture, isn't it? With the one or two on, whatever you think it is, into the where he won at Marion, was it?
Yeah, and I think they've gone to that same spot and they hit like a 6 iron in from there now or something like that, or eight
Yeah, they
iron,
just
but
played the Australian Open at Royal Melbourne a few weeks back, and they hadn't been there for 18 or 19 years, I think. And there's certainly the different clubs they're hitting in now compared to what we did in the days is crazy.
yeah, I mean it was. I mean, I remembered when Greg shot the back-to-back 66s that year at Royal Melbourne on I don't know if it was Friday and Saturday, I think or maybe it was the first two rounds, but I remember he shot back-to-back 66s, and I remembered I think I shot back-to-back 73s or something, and I played really well. I mean, the cut.
So
I
that's
think I
good, can be
I
good.
think
I
I
mean, if you
shot
hit in the
one
wrong
four.
places,
I think I
hit in the
shot
wrong place on the
146.
green.
I think I shot 146 and I made the cut by 6 shots or something.
Well, if you hit
So
in the
Greg
wrong place on
Norman,
some of those greens, you're struggling to putt, aren't you, in the wrong place? If you short side yourself, they're just so quick. And if you miss the greens in the wrong spot, you can't get up and down in places. So it's
yeah,
not only you've got to hit great shots, but you've got to think your way around there well.
I didn't understand how Greg Norman could shoot back-to-back 66s on that golf course. I mean, it just seemed impossible. Like, what is he doing? Like, what kind of game is he playing to be able to do that? I just it was out of the realm of my possibilities. I didn't understand it. I mean, I didn't think there were that many birdies out there. I mean, how do you make six birdies and not make any bogeys and shoot 66
Yes,
on that
that's
golf
right.
course?
That's the thing. The no bogeys is the thing, isn't it, around those courses? Well,
Yeah, really impressive. So when I think of greatness, I think of that, and I know what Greg was doing out there, hitting a lot of long irons in too, to those holes and having to do that. And if I see a player now go out there and he's hitting wedges into all those holes, and maybe he could shoot those scores, but he's not playing it the way Greg Norman did, not coming in with the long irons and mid irons into those greens and shooting 66. It was just, and Peter Senior the same way when he would get hot. Um, there were so many good players down there. I mean, my gosh, just the guy, just kind of run of the mill guys that were just playing on that tour that would just get hot and shoot scores that you just couldn't even believe. And Craig Perry. I was there at the Lakes when he won the PGA, the Australian PGA down there, and the rumor was he was like sleeping in his car that week or something. He was just kind of a you know young guy and making his way, and but
he could
just
really
guys like.
he could hit his ball around the course, couldn't he? You wouldn't have said watching him hit balls he was the best ball striker you've ever seen or the most scintillating, but he really knew how to score and chip and putt and get the score. He could put a score on the board and did well for himself. He won around the world, didn't he?
Yeah, Graham Marsh, right? Another guy that was just a
Yes.
real precision player,
Did
right?
well and
Older,
played a lot in Japan.
older generation, right? And I've actually argued that the Australian Open really should have been considered the fourth major of the world. You know, more than the PGA Championship in the U.S. because golf is a global game, and I don't think that three of the four majors should be on U.S. soil, especially when you have such a deep history of golf in Australia, going all the way back to Norm Venida and all these guys that just
Yeah,
great players, and Bruce Crampton, and just going on all the way back. And if you look at the people that won the Australian Open going back from the 40s, 50s, 60s, you're going to see, Gary Player won it like what, 5 times or something. Nicholas was down there. Arnold
Nicholas,
Palmer
all the big
won it.
guys, all the big names used to come out and play. They all played it.
Yeah, and they would win that tournament too. And the courses are great. The To me, a major championship should it should require something unique. In other words, if you look at the U.S. Open historically, I'm not. let's just talk in the persimmon and blade era, right? We'll just keep it in that context. The U.S. Open was a course you had to hit it straight. The tournament you had to hit it straight. You had to drive it in the fairway. If you hit it in the rough, forget it. I mean, you're done. I
Yeah.
mean, the rough was this thick, right? The British Open or the Open, the Brits get insulted if you call it the British Open because it's the Open, but the um, the Open is links golf, right? I mean, it's a different style of golf. You mean you have it's more of the ground game, and let's talk about Peter Thompson, right? I mean, going over
Yeah.
there
Won
and
it
what did he
five
win it?
times.
Like five
Five.
times?
5 times.
5 times, right? So
Watson's the only one.
he
Tom Watson won 6, has he? I think.
so Peter Thompson goes from Australia halfway around the world and wins that tournament 5 times. Now, why don't people talk about that more? I mean, that's
He'd like
really
his.
incredible, isn't it?
Have you had a look at his motion? His action.
It's incredible. It's very
Very
much like
good.
Hogan.
Very good.
The same kind of thing. A low ball hitter, right? Um, Ball control, fantastic, fantastic. And so again, getting back on point here, you have the U.S. Open, you know, the high rough, have to drive it straight, parkland golf. You have the Open, the British Open, where it's links golf and more of the ground game. And then you have the Masters, which is that one course. It's the same course, and you can Alistair McKenzie and Bobby Jones design this, magical kingdom kind of golf course thing, and it
Mm.
has the tradition, and it's the Masters and all that. So, okay, fair enough, call that a world major. But I think the PGA Championship is what? It's just a watered down U.S. Open. They play the same courses, so
Yeah,
it's not
true.
really anything unique unto itself. It used to be a match play event, back in the old days, so that was unique. But once they moved it to stroke play, I think it's not really a major championship because it's not anything unique. Now, the Australian game, is a different style of golf down there. It's different than the U.S. Open, and it's not pure links golf either. So
Sure.
what to me, what I found about Australian golf, generally speaking, was it around the greens that it would be shaved off. So if your ball went, you had an elevated, a green that was up, but if it would roll off the side, it would go down 30 or 50 feet or something, and then you've got to hit some bump and run thing up. So in
Yeah.
that sense, it was kind of like links golf in that way. But you had narrower fairways, and if you missed the fairways, you'd be in those manzanita bushes or just, unplayable
Yeah.
lie. I mean, I don't know how many times I'd hit a ball and it'd be off, like you're done. You
Yeah.
need one of
Especially in
those
Melbourne, you can get
ball
some of the low.
retrievers to get your ball out.
No, there's some great courses for that.
Yeah, I think that's another, I really think the Australian Open is the fourth. To me, it's the fourth major of the world. It is.
I
I'm
think
not.
to
People will
Greg
argue, but
Greg
I'm
Norman's
gonna.
credit, he was trying to get a more of a world focused tour, wasn't he? And that's what led him to live in the end.
Yeah, the Live Tour. I mean, I don't really follow the modern game much because I'm kind of a golf 2.0 person. I believe that that's the I believe that's the correct game. Just like baseball, they still use a wood bat. Cricket is
Yeah,
still
sure.
wood. Golf with persimmon, wood. That's the proper professional game. And then the amateurs would use the helping clubs and forgiving, just like softball is a dumbed down version of baseball for the weekend person, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if I don't know much about cricket, but is there some kind of a version of cricket where just kind of the everyday person plays on the weekend or something, and kind of
Oh,
a
it's crazy now. There's a lot of Indian immigration in Australia now, and you'll see them out in all the ovals and fields playing cricket, and it's a huge sport in Australia, cricket. Obviously it's a summer sport, so we're in the peak period now, and Australia are playing England actually in the Test matches, so it's all happening at the moment, the cricket. But they're
yeah.
playing
I
with
should.
as you said earlier, they tinkered with an aluminium bat, but they banned that pretty much straight away, and they've stuck with the willow and and kept it traditional. I agree with you. I don't know why we've missed the boat, haven't we, on that, with doing that with golf. It's unfortunate. I mean, sounds like Nicholas wanted to do something like that, or some sort of rollback, didn't he, at some stage?
Yeah, yeah, I know he talked about the ball. I mean, there's the talk about the ball rollback, but I just don't believe it's the golf ball. Even from the tests that I've done, I don't believe it. I think it's the driver, and I think what it is the trampoline effect of the big-headed driver, right? So if you go to the gym and you jog on one of those little trampolines, it's like 3 feet wide, right? You can't jump
Yep.
very high, right?
Yep.
But if the trampoline is 12 feet wide or 16 feet
Yeah.
wide, then you can
Yeah.
jump, 20 feet in the
Yeah.
air. I think it's just a common sense thing. You got the big head, a bigger boom trampoline effect coming off the club. And it's not the golf ball. I mean, I really believe that if they didn't allow for any trampoline effect. If the back of the behind the face was ribbed or something to stop that from happening, I don't think you'd hit one of those big-headed drivers. I mean, assuming it's the same length, as a
Yeah.
44 or 43 and a half inch driver, I don't think it's not the size of the head. If you make the club lightweight, you lose mass. So mass is in the equation for long ball hitting. I don't know if you remember Kelly Murray. Do you remember Kelly
I
from
do.
Canada?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Well. Yes.
Yeah, Kelly is a good friend of mine, and he was the world long drive champion there for a while in the 80s and drove a ball 432 yards with a 16-ounce persimmon driver. Now, Kelly talks about mass, how important it was to have a heavy mass, I mean, strong. If you can swing a club, 120 miles an hour that's 16 ounces, you're going to hit it farther than if it's 10 ounces. It's just physics. I mean, F equals ma, P equals mv. These are just physics formulas.
But the old
So
persimmon
I don't
driver
really
used to have
understand.
the hollow part out
That's
behind the old persimmon driver had the hollow piece where they had a piece of lead right in behind the inlay of the club, didn't they? Right in the centre.
yeah, that's like. I mean, I'm a persimmon player. I only play persimmon, and that's exactly right. I mean, if you take the sole
To
plate
Hogan,
off
is it?
right about here, there's going to be a big chunk of lead, and that lead is
Yeah.
going to be right behind the sweet spot. And when that connects, when that lead comes through and you hit that insert and it all lines up, boom, that ball takes off. And if you miss it a little bit, then you're gonna pay the price on that, right? But I enjoy playing persimmon for many, many reasons. Mainly, um, I like the feel of it, and I like how it makes me a better ball striker. I mean, I have to hit it. I've got to
Oh,
hit it
100%.
center, right? I mean, it
100%.
forces the issue. You've got to be more precise. I like the feel of it, and I like how when I play, a classic golf course, I'm playing the course as the architect designed the course. I just played Cypress Point recently, and I got to really enjoy Alistair McKenzie's design because I'm hitting it right where he is telling me to hit it. Here's a bunker
Yeah,
here. I'm going to go to the
100%.
left. Bunker there. I'm going to go to the right. I can try and cut this corner. There's a big risk. Now, if I'm hitting the ball 50 yards farther, 70 yards farther, I'm just ignoring all of that nuance and beauty in the design of the golf course that the young kids are not appreciating. They're not even understanding it or even getting an appreciation. And I don't think that that's good for golf. And I feel bad for the kids that are not getting to play these courses the way they were designed because there's some really incredibly wonderful design
Oh,
classic courses
100%.
where
100%.
these things were. Do you talk to Michael Clayton about this stuff at all?
I saw Michael last year, but I haven't spoken to him a lot. I just saw him in passing, but he's right into it, isn't he? He's done a lot of courses in Australia now, and he's working with Ogilvy. I think they're a team now. Jeff Ogilvy and himself are doing a lot of work down in Australia, modifying courses. I think they've just finished one in Tasmania, 7 Mile Beach, I think it's called, which is supposed to be very good. So I'll be interested to see what that's like.
Yeah, I remembered playing in the Tasmanian Open. What was it? The Golf Club of Tasmania? Is that in Hobart? Is that where the tournament used to
So
be at?
Tasmanian Golf Club, where you went
Yeah.
out. I ran third in Tasmanian Open there.
Yeah, I mean,
But yeah,
what a
that was a
great
good course,
tournament.
open to the elements.
Yeah, I remember the weather, I remember it got cold down there and windy and oh, it was brutal. I remember Mike Harwood and I were paired in the final round and it was just so cold and wet and windy and raining and just miserable. It was just absolutely miserable. And yeah, that was I think that was the year there was the amateur. It was an older guy and he was an amateur and he was leading the tournament.
Right.
An
The year I
He
ran
was
third, I
I
think
think I want
Brian,
to
a
say it
guy
was
named Brian Jones won. The year I ran third, a guy named Brian Jones. He used to play a lot in Japan. I think he won that tournament.
that year. Yeah, I'm thinking it was somebody else that won. I played it. It all a lot of it kind of blends into one thing at this point because so long ago that I played that tournament every year, and I can't really remember one year from the next. From unless it was a tournament I was doing well in or something like that. I remember
You were talking
thinking
about
I was
the
just
persimmon driver
playing
there. I can
normal.
remember we always had our flight was a lot lower than it is nowadays with that persimmon driver, and if we wanted to try and maybe we had a downwind shot or we wanted to really try and carry one, we didn't have those big long tees. We used to tee it up on a pencil and really try and get the ball up in the air in those
Yeah,
days. Nowadays they can buy any length tee. We just had little standard tees, and if you wanted to tee one high, I can remember we put on a pencil or tried to double up some tees or something to get that big high flight with the driver. So we're using persimmon. I think I had a X100 steel shaft. There was no one was using graphite in those days. It
yeah.
was all steel. Good though, good flight, strong flight.
So what kind of persimmon driver or persimmon drivers were you using back then? Was Maxfly making a good, Dunlop making a good persimmon,
When
I
I played in
assume? Or were
Europe,
you
they gave me. I had a Max Fly one that was quite good, a persimmon Max Fly one. I did use a McGregor a bit before that, and then towards the end when I finished playing a bit, I think I had some Mizuno stuff that they were putting out, some Japanese Mizuno.
Mizuno persimmons?
Hmm.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I didn't know. I don't think I've ever seen a Mizuno persimmon, but Mizuno's just got a great reputation for making, top shelf golf clubs, right? I mean, everyone that I know that's hit
Quality.
Mizuno's is
Yeah.
a really
It's a long
quality
time ago,
quality
John.
player.
Long time ago.
I know. I mean, it is. I mean, it is a long time ago, but it isn't in a way. It's not. I think we're probably, you know, three was the last year a major was won with a persimmon driver. I think that was Bernhard Langer won the Masters in 93. 92, Tom Kite won the US Open at Pebble Beach with a persimmon driver. I'm supposedly considered the last player to win on the Canadian Tour with a persimmon driver in 91. But if you look at that, so what are we talking? 30, a little over 30 years now, 33
Yeah,
years. In the big scope of golf, um, it's not really that long. I I was very
that's true.
alarmed in if we say 1995 was kind of the golf 3.0 going into the modern age and the frying pan drivers and all that stuff, maybe 95, 98, something like the game really started to change in the Tiger era and all that. I think by 2008, 9, 10, I started playing again just kind of for fun, and then I saw the modern gear, and I didn't even understand it. I thought it was I when I first saw the modern clubs, I just knew it was illegal stuff that the USJ never would allow,
It's
or
crazy
I
how
just
much
thought
it's
it was
evolved if you
yeah.
only
I
think
didn't
30
realize
years.
it was legal. When I found out it was legal, and then I saw because I didn't really play much after I retired from the game for about gosh, it was probably 13 years. I didn't play at all from 90 93 to 2006. Didn't play golf. I was just out doing other things and came back to playing. Then so I was a persimmon player, and then I 2006, I just go out and start playing golf again, and I hit persimmon because that's the only thing I
What
knew.
I had.
You know, I just
What
hit
you knew,
persimmon,
yeah,
and
sure.
yeah, and all this had changed so much in 13 years. Now, if you go back to 1993 and persimmon is still winning major championship, and then you go back to 1980, it's no difference, really, right?
True.
Nothing significant, right?
That's
Or if you
true.
go from 1980 back to 1967, not really, not much difference. And if you went back from 1970 to 1957, not really
Well, I
much
think that
difference.
if you look at that shaft, that true temper shaft, everyone the longevity of that must be crazy. That that's been around. Everyone used it, didn't they?
Well, you said you were going to watch the video I just put up today where I went into the science lab and I compared a 1910 hickory shaft to a steel shaft from 1951. I'm playing 1951 Tommy Armour Silver Scott 985s. The reason that I'm playing those is because I've been teaching Ben Hogan's methodology to the best of my understanding, and I figured the best way for me to understand his golf swing at first would be to use the kind of clubs he used.
Periodic clubs,
Start
yeah.
there. He was on the McGregor staff. He had not started his own company yet. 1950, 53, those great years he had. He was on the McGregor staff. He and Byron Nelson and Jimmy Demaret and the great players of that time, a lot of them were staff, and Hogan was hitting McGregor. And the clubs that he was using, well, the 985 right here,
What sort of flex comparison would the shaft be compared to something
very
comparable
stiff,
now?
very stiff, very stiff, and very heavy.
Like an
Very
X,
heavy and very stiff.
Dynamic Gold X or something?
Yeah, or a little stiffer than that. Yeah, probably like
Okay.
an X 300 or something like that. Really, really stiff shaft because the heads are heavy. So the dead weight, I'm very concerned with the overall weight of the club, the entire weight of the club. So the dead weight on this club is 16. This is a 5 iron. It's 16 and a half ounces dead weight. So with the head being heavy, it needs a stiffer shaft to support the heavier head. So back then, they were very into mass, more mass, heavier shaft, stiffer, more mass. And that was the way that they went about things in that era. And what interesting, I'll just so I did the comparison with this
What
hickory
sort of lie
club,
are you
right?
running on that? You're running.
So So this hickory shafted club, I set it up exactly the same as the steel shafted club. But what I had to do is I had to take a 2 ounce fishing weight, melt it on the back, and glue it on the back to get this up to 16 and a half ounces. The old hickory stuff, the heads were very thin. They're very like razor blade, right? They didn't
Yeah.
have a lot of mass. They
Yep.
they figured out how to make a golf club, but they didn't realize that the heads really needed to be heavier. They could go a lot heavier. And it wasn't
The
until,
hosel was quite big to support the shaft, wasn't it? The hosel was quite thick. Or
yeah, with the hickory shaft coming in here. But the overall weight of this club was about 14 and a half ounces until I added 2 ounces of lead to the back. My what I wanted to experiment with, and you'll see this in the video if you watch it,
yeah, I'll watch it
if I
later. Yeah.
set these clubs up with the same loft, the same lie angle, the same length, right? The same overall weight, and then I take them into the lab and hit shots, I'm going to predict that these clubs are going to hit virtually the same. And when I went in there, that's exactly what happened. I hit them the same. My club head speed with a 5 iron, a heavy 16 and a half ounce 5 iron. I think most modern clubs 5 irons are probably 14 ounces or something. They're much
Yep.
lighter. So at 16 and a half ounces, I'm swinging at 87 miles an hour on every single swing. 87, 87, 87, 87, 87. And the ball flight was the same. All the balls were landing within 2 yards of each other, according to the launch monitor. No difference at all. So then I take one of my students who's a 20 handicap, and I give him the hickory club to hit, and he
Was the
had just
dispersion
spent,
similar, John? Was the
what's that?
dispersion similar? Was the dispersion similar, or didn't? Because there'd be more torque in the
Yeah,
hickory, or not?
dispersion was the same. I'm a good ball striker. I'm hitting in the center of the club. So yeah, dispersion was relative the same. No, nothing significant difference. Took my student. Um, he owns the shop down there, the lab. Put him on it. 20 handicapper. No difference. And he had the latest Mira irons that are, $3,000 a set or something like that or whatever. Great set of clubs. I've seen them. They look nice. They're great. But he took his Mira 5 iron and he hit the Hickory 5 iron back and forth. No difference.
Yeah, well,
In fact, the longest ball that he hit was actually with the Hickory club. It actually went farther than it did with his Mira. I mean, so
with
it,
the
it
mass
just
behind the ball, the mass directly
because of
behind
the
the.
mass, right? It's just the mass. That's what the ball cares about is the mass and that formula of the velocity and the mass, and I use the same golf ball. Wasn't switching golf balls, so they're all the same using the Callaway. But I just thought that was really interesting. I'm not really sure there's been any big significant technological advancements in golf clubs until the the trampoline, right? The
Yes,
trampoline effect. The modern
I
irons, from what I
tend to
understand, they're
agree.
just putting
The
a different number on
does if you hit a 5 iron or a 7 iron in a blade compared to a huge cavity, if you mishit it, doesn't matter whether it's a blade or a big cavity, don't you? You know straight away if it hasn't been hit correctly, and so
them.
they
Yeah,
say they're much more
but I
forgiving,
think,
but if you haven't hit it correctly.
but when we were playing, in the persimmon and blade era, and then you were hitting blades, and I'm hitting blades, and all the good players were hitting blades, right? All of them. I mean, I don't remember anybody really, dominating or winning events with cavity backs back then. I mean, everybody, Ian Stanley, all the guys are Fergie, they're all hitting blades, right? Everybody was
Yeah.
hitting blades. Peter Senior's hitting blades.
Towards the
All the
end of when
guys
I
were hitting
played,
blades
we
down
all
there.
carried a ping 1 iron. A lot of people had a ping 1 iron. That was a railer 1 iron or something, which had a slight
Hmm.
cavity in it, didn't it? But
Yeah,
that was really the only
yeah,
one.
that would be right. I know some of the guys would hit ping 1 irons. Yeah, just to get the ball in play. It was a little bit more forgiving than a blade 1 iron, right? It was really, yeah, really, 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 really tough to hit that. So, but the irons were blades, and I think the argument for blades is that when you're practicing, you can feel when you're a little bit off, right? You mishit it a little bit, and then your brain says, "Oh,
Actually,
okay,
I
I
think
need to go here."
I've just got one here. When you can see that's where you're hitting out of
Wow, look at
the one
that.
spot all the time. You get that, don't you? And with
Yeah,
a
I
more
mean,
of a blade type club.
yeah, I mean, you're hitting it dead center every time. You don't need a cavity back, and the blade is going to give you better feedback. It's going to keep your swing in better shape because your brain's getting the feedback of the precision that you need. And I always felt like, I could just work the ball a little bit better with the blade. It wasn't clunky, it was you could really shape, when you're
And
swinging
and
good, you
and
could really
control
control it.
control your trajectory too, especially playing in Australia, playing a lot of wind out here. We need to be able to knock the ball flight down on some, and it's much easier with the blade, isn't it, to do that sort of stuff
Yeah.
and to be able to hit the different shapes you need.
Yeah, especially out at that great course. Is it La Perouse out there, the golf club?
New South Wales Golf Club, New South Wales, it's
No,
called,
I
yeah.
mean that's arguably one of the greatest courses in the world, isn't it? Don't you think?
Fabulous, fabulous. They've just done a refurbish. From what I understand, the whole 18 holes from about 100 yards in. They've done all the green complexes and redone all that. And I haven't played it since, but it as a layout, fabulous course, yes, and open to
Yeah,
the
I mean,
elements.
I never played in a tournament out there, but I did play out there a few times, and what a great course. And I remembered some of the public courses out there were just fantastic, like that long reef course. That was a good golf course out there on the,
Yeah, that's right. Links
I mean,
style
right
type
out on
course
the
out on the
coast
point.
out there, and the wind coming in and everything, and you better bring some game out there to that long reef. Get that wind blowing out
Yeah.
there, and
Well, heading
what a
back to
nice
New South
public golf
Wales,
course.
yeah, great course, but open to the elements. It's certainly doable to have a good score when it's not windy, but you're playing a windy day, and it's a whole different beast, as you would know.
Yeah, I played out there a few times in the wind, and I was like, wow, this is the real deal out here. I mean, for a public golf course that someone could play, I mean, I think,
Long
when I
reef,
was down
yes,
there,
100%,
yeah,
100%.
people could play there for like, 15 or $20 or something, back
Yep, that'd be
back
right.
in the 80s. And
Yeah,
what a test. I mean, yeah, that was.
it's amazing now how golf. It was on a bit of a lull in Australia, and then since COVID, it's just been the popularity. I think it's all around the world. The popularity of golf has been crazy.
Did you play in Japan at all?
I only played 1 week up there, missed the cut. One week on the Asian tour. I forget the name of the tournament.
Yeah, the Asian, because back then you had the Asian tour and then you had the Japanese tour also, right? There were
That's right.
separate
That's
tours.
right.
Yeah,
So
and
I
then they
played a bit
kind
on
of.
the Asian tour, all the Australasian stuff, and a bit in Europe. And before I actually got my card in Europe, I went over and played a bit on that the European Challenge tour. Before that, I actually won one of the tournaments on that one year.
So did you play the Asian tour, like the
Yes,
regular like Asian tour? Did you play the whole tour?
I did, and that was a similar thing to the Australasian tour. You could Monday qualify. If you made the cut, you went straight into the next one. So that was a good system too. Especially there's a lot more travel there because you're having obviously plane trips between each country, stuff like that. I can remember playing India. I don't know if you've seen the recent Indian Open. They had that. We played that course. That's really tight, really tight. That single file down there. I've noticed. I've never been to Canada. I noticed some of the ones you've been reflecting on some of your posts about some of the tight courses down there, and that was probably one of our steps for us young Aussies years ago, where you would do the Australasian, you can do the Asian tour. Where would you go? Would you go to Europe or would you go to Canada to next? So that was the sort of toss up we had. I thought there was more chance if you went to Europe that you could that I could move into the European tour. But the other one was to go through Canada and then hopefully into the States. And I never went to Canada, but I heard a lot of good things about the guys that went.
Yeah, now you've got to have some stories about that Asian tour. I never played the Asian tour, and I regret that I didn't because I know I would just have the most amazing stories to tell. But
There was a guy named American guy was pretty much running all the tour groups. John Bender, I think his name was
John
taking.
Benda, yeah, running that tour, he would bring 50 or 60 guys or something over or something like that that would sign
That's
up.
right.
He'd arrange everything and the flights and the whole
Yes.
thing, the tour, and you just kind of, yeah, it was something that I had considered doing, but I was playing. I got right on the Canadian tour right away, and then I got the exemption to go down and start the Australian tour, and then go, through
Yeah.
the
Uh,
process down there. And then I think that Asian tour was kind of running in like January or February or something,
that
if I
sounds right.
remember right, March.
The
And
courses, the courses these days must be so much better. It was a young tour, and the courses weren't anything like they are now. And I can remember going to Singapore and Malaysia, and the blade on the grass was as thick as your finger on the fairways. It was hard to control your ball, and the greens were unusual or difficult to putt on. A lot of those guys had these little short popping strokes to try and get the ball rolling. There was a lot of grain in them and very wiry greens. it was something you need to get used to. It was you need to play there for a couple of years to start to get a bit of a feel what to do because it was different. And nowadays it's all changed. They've got the different grasses up there now with the finer grasses to play, and it's they've got some beautiful courses. And obviously I haven't been up there to see them.
Well, I had heard that there was a tournament or two there where the greens were actually like kikuyu grass or like crabgrass. Like the greens were like crabgrass greens. Like
I'd believe it. I'd believe it. I
yeah.
didn't get that bad, but some of the fairways I played on, it's hard. It was like playing out the thickest rough that had been cut down with a really thick bladed grass on it, and it was hard to control you. I don't know what the grass was called. It was hard to control your ball, and then you had to try not to get sick with the local food or water as well. So there's always a lot of guys couldn't make it to their tee because they're throwing up because they've got dysentery or something like that where the water's been no good. And I can remember playing and having to throw up on a couple of the tees before you hit off because you've just been that crook.
And India, I heard that tournament was like just really crazy. You guys were like on some kind of a bus or train or something going out. It was like a couple hours from the hotel, and it was just out in the
I can remember
the
we arrived at in Delhi, I think it was, and they threw all our clubs onto the back of a truck. It was an open truck, and they said, well, someone's got to go with this truck because otherwise there'll be no clubs left by the time you get to the hotel.
Okay, yeah. So we were talking about playing in India, and you guys are heading out in the van or the cargo truck or something. There's like a couple
Yeah,
hour
well,
drive out
there's
to the
quite a
course
number
for
of us
you.
arrived, and we had the bus trip to the hotel was nearly an hour. I think it was heavy traffic, and they threw all our golf clubs on the back of a truck, a big open truck, and they said, "Well, we'll have to get one or two of you guys to go sort of shotgun on the truck, otherwise you'll have nothing left in New Delhi. People will just take those clubs left, right, and centre." So I can remember Wayne Riley, who's an absolute larrikin and a champion guy, but he put his hand up and he rode shotgun on the back of the truck, sitting on there with these clubs, yelling and screaming at everyone to keep away and everything. So if you know Wayne Riley, he's one of the only guys that could probably do that, and all the
Yeah.
clubs got there. But yes, uh, what a place India! I played 4 Indian Opens, 2 in Delhi and 2 in Calcutta, and very interesting place. But a lot of history there. If you look at a lot of the boards in the clubhouse, you see all the generals and the majors were all the club captains and presidents and all that. So there's a lot of English history or British history in some of those clubs that obviously
Well,
brought
I
golf
heard,
and
I heard
cricket.
so many stories about that Indian Open from, you guys are staying in like a five-star hotel or something, a really nice hotel, and then you get in this bus or this train or whatever, heading off into the countryside, and one of the guys that said, they're driving by, there's like dead bodies and stuff, or people are, just like dying on the streets and stuff or whatever. And is
I
that
can
true, or
remember
was that just
the things that stuck out. I can remember when we left the hotel. That was the Intercontinental Hotel in Delhi. Was just hustle and bustle outside. You opened the door and it was like an oasis, and the noise went away and you just calmed down. But there was a guy with no legs with a Hessian bag strapped to his backside, and every time you come in, he'd be begging for money. It was horrible, sad, and I can just remember the last day when we all got on the bus to leave, and here's this guy on with his Hessian bag trying to chase after the bus with everyone throwing out whatever coins or rupees they had left to give him, but I couldn't believe it. It's just he'd obviously been maimed or taken his legs off just so he could beg. It was horrible, horrible. The
I mean, the
I can
level of
remember
poverty there
the
that
poverty is
Westerners would
amazing.
see would just be,
And they've got the cows that are allowed to roam the streets because
yeah,
they're a sacred animal, and they get all the cow patties and they pat them on the walls into circles, and they dry them out and use them as. This is obviously in the 80s. Use them for their fuel for fires and stuff like that. So, be a pretty smelly fire, wouldn't it, when they're burning stuff? But I think I can remember we all played, and then we got paid in cash in US dollars at the end of the tournament. But they were crazy times in those days, and You see the India now is so different. They only had one style of car in those days. There was no commercialism there. They didn't have Coca-Cola or any of that. They had their own camper cola, it was called, and there was only one car, and everyone had the same car. And I can remember just
And
sitting in the traffic coming back from the golf course one day, and uh, the cars, if there's two lanes, they make it into four. They're just going all ways. If you pulled up at any traffic lights or where you had to stop, there'd be a beggar at the window. So I can remember just sort of looking down between my legs the whole way back to the. So I didn't have to look at the poverty going back from the course to the hotel. It's knowing how lucky I am. Coming from Australia, I really felt I was come from the lucky country, I can tell you.
yeah, and to think that those people are so they're so poor there, but then like you said, these cows are just wandering around all over the place, and millionaires own cattle here in the states or whatever. It's like here's a food source, that's for plentiful there, but they won't eat them because they're vegetarians or they're sacred or whatever. And yeah, such
I
a
can
different
remember
culture.
one day arriving at the course at Delhi, and there must have been a group of 100 people trying to get in, and apparently these are all the caddies trying to get in or get jobs for the week, and the security guard had this great big cane pole, and he's just sort of whacking around them just to try and calm them down and get them out of the way, and then the gate opens and lets the bus through for us to go in, and he's trying to whack all these caddies that are trying to get a job for for the Indian Open for the week. The other one I remember vividly, there was a big dam in the middle of the course, and they had a shanty town just outside. And I can remember the dam in the course, in the practice round this was, and there's one guy having a wash in one side of the dam there, and there's at the very far end there's another guy doing his number two business in the other end of the in the other end of the dam. And this is on the golf course.
Yeah, that reminds me of a story. Someone had told me that they were playing a course. It might have been in the Indian Open. They hit a shot in a bunker, and they went down the bunker, and there was like a family living in the bunker. Like there was, they had a little tent or something down there. There's actually people were living in the in the bunker. I mean, does that sound like something that would have happened?
I didn't see that, but I could. I can remember
It could have, yeah. I
in
mean,
the
because
trees the
sometimes
shadows
you hear
come
these
down.
things, and
There's big bird shadows coming down as you're looking down your ball. I look up and there's big vultures, huge big vultures sitting up in the tops of the trees, and the shadow they cast looked like an aeroplane coming past you, but the vultures were just sitting up there in the tree waiting for, I don't know, maybe for someone to die or whatever they were going to
yeah.
pick up. But true story around Delhi in those days, they had, sorry, this was Calcutta, and they had these big vultures in the trees.
Wow, yeah. Did you go over and play the Sunshine Tour in South
No,
Africa?
no, I didn't do South Africa. That was another option to do. I think we had our own tour going, and that's pretty much when the Aussie or the Australasian tour was going. So
Yeah, they
we
ran
didn't
at the
really get
same
into.
time. So then you wouldn't have played the South American Tour either.
No, is that something you dabbled in? Or?
Yeah. No, I didn't. I just played Canada and Australia, New Zealand, a little bit in the U.S., but I really liked the Australian Tour. I was playing down there. I thought, well, maybe I'll just play down here. I mean, because the option was either you're on the U.S. Tour, but if you're not on the U.S. Tour, you're playing just mini tour events, which are, not really very good events. There really wasn't anything. There was no minor leagues. There was no Hogan Tour, or Nike Tour, or whatever, Corn
Right.
Ferry or whatever. There was no minor league tour. So you were just playing
Europe
like
wasn't
little mini tour
something
events where the players had to put up their own money for the purses.
Europe wasn't something you
And
thought about.
yeah, I did. But my year was running kind of like in Canada it would be, May, June, July, August, September, and then Australia would be, September, October, November, December, and then I would spend a few months at home,
Yep.
or else I'd be on the road the whole year.
Yeah.
So I would kind of, January, February, March, April, I was maybe playing around, working on my game or taking a few months off. That was my off season. So the European tour, if I remember right, the qualifying schools were the same time as the U.S. tour, so you had to do one or the other. You had to
Gotcha.
choose, and so I think the one year I went to the U.S. tour, I want to say it was '89, and there were three stages. You'd have to go through the sectionals, the regionals, and then to the finals, and I made it through the sectionals, and then I made it through the regionals, and then I went to the finals down in Houston, and just didn't play well that week. You know, it was just kind of one of those things. You didn't have to play phenomenally great at any time. You just had to play good at all three
Yeah.
stages. It really wasn't any harder to make it through the final stage as it was the second stage or even the first stage sometimes. I mean, you had to play good at each stage. Not great, but you had to play good. And if you were just played average or not so good, you were out. And if that was the first stage, you were out. If the second stage you're out, finals you're out.
Sure.
And so I'm with you on the old, what they call the old rabbit tour, where you'd get a card and then that would allow you to Monday qualify. And I remember in Australia there'd be 20, 30 spots
That's right.
on
Yep.
Monday. So
That's
I
right.
mean, you didn't have to shoot 65 to get in a tournament. You shoot 72 and you're in the tournament.
That's right. Yeah,
You
100%.
know, you could shoot 73 sometimes and get in a tournament, and
That's
you're
true.
in. And then if you
Yep.
make the cut, then you're in the next week. And if you missed the cut on Friday, you had Saturday to travel, you had Sunday to get to a practice round for the Monday qualifier. You go out Monday and shoot
Yeah, I
71 or
agree.
something, and then
You
you're
always
in.
thought you had a fair chance of getting in, didn't you? It wasn't like it's a four spotter where you got to go out and shoot 66 or something like that. If there's 20 spots, you just got to play solid and you get in.
Yeah, I remember going to a four spotter for a PGA Tour event for the LA Open, I think. And the guy I played with, he bogeyed two of the first three holes, and he just walked in. I mean, after three holes, he just went in. He goes, "I'm two over. I'm not going to shoot 65 to get in
Yeah,
this, or 66." So he just packed up and just went in. Yeah, I don't think that's good. I don't like the exempt tour. Never did. I think if you have 60 exempt spots on the tour, and you got 40 Monday spots, that's 100, and you still got another 44 spots to fill up from guys making the cut the week before, different exemptions and some sponsor exemptions and stuff. That's the way it was always done before.
yeah,
I think it's better. One of my main arguments is that it keeps the dream alive, you know, even
100%.
for a local guy.
Yep,
Local guy that, hey, the tour's coming through my town. I'm going to
yep,
try and get in this week. I'm
yep,
playing pretty good. And then, they get in the New South Wales Open or something and they qualify and they make the cut. And then they're playing Adelaide the next week and they make the
yeah,
cut and they're over in Perth and they make the cut and they're in the New Zealand Open. Now all of a sudden they're kind of out on the tour and they can come back home and say, I just played four or five, pro Australian tour events.
yeah.
That keeps the dream alive for people rather than once a year you've got this qualifier for four rounds. You shoot one or two bad rounds and you're out for the whole year.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I don't think that's good. I don't think it's good. It's never was good, still isn't good, and now they're making it even worse, right? Didn't you just say on the Champions Tour they're getting rid of the Q school out there now?
Yeah, the Q school's finished from what I understand. Yeah, there's none of that. Yeah.
So how would an Australian player even play the senior tour?
To get on the Champions Tour now, I think you must have won so many majors or so many times on the PGA Tour to get a start. I would think. From what I
But
believe,
what if
I'm not
what
true.
if you're
I'm not
one of the
100% sure, but they're talking about there must be some sort of point system or so many wins and so many majors give you different points, and you've got to get so many points to be able to get the start.
Yeah, it I don't know. Don't get me started. There's so many things
No,
wrong with golf these
it's
days.
a bit of a boys' club now by the sounds, but they're keeping it to themselves, aren't they? I think
Yeah, yeah,
the last there were four out of the five guys were Aussies. Not last year, the year before of the tour school, and then there was only one American the following year, I think, too. That Soren Kelson won, and so there's a lot of good Europeans coming through as well, isn't there? The older guys, so they're probably trying to keep it in house as much as
yeah.
they can, which is I sort of I get it, but
I've always said if you want to make it on the world, as a professional golfer on the world tours, or you have to be the best player within 200 miles of where you live. If you're not the best player within 200 miles of where you live, forget it. You got no chance. Because you're going to play
Australia's a
against
big
the
place.
best guy within
Might be
200
might be
miles
more
of
than 200.
where this guy lives and that guy lives and anywhere, right? I mean, you
Yeah,
know, um, when I played the Canadian tour, I couldn't believe how good some of those guys were up there. Guys from Quebec, those
yeah,
Quebec guys, and Jean-Louis Lamar. What a great player that guy was. I never heard of him. I go up there, it's like, who's this guy? This incredible
yeah,
golf swing and
yeah,
just great ball control, and he was the best guy within 200 miles of where he lives. You know,
yeah, and some.
I mean, and then Kelly Murray, and whatever, out in Vancouver or whatever. You've got to be the best guy in your area. If you've got any chance out there at all. I mean, if you can't beat the
Sure.
guys at your local club, forget it, right? I mean,
No,
just
it's
forget it.
crazy.
No
Yeah, no
way,
chance.
right?
No chance. No chance.
So this story of Billy Dunk. Now, I'd heard somebody had told me that he in some tournament he shot four straight 65s in a tournament. Did you ever hear about that?
Right, I don't know that. I think I was alluding to before. He holds something like 70 or 75 course records around Australia. He had that just in small events, but he used to win everything and shoot lots of low numbers.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
again,
I've
he
heard that
was
he
probably a little bit before my time.
yeah, and before my time, but
But there's the Aussie
yeah,
guys
I
like
heard that he.
there's Peter Thompson, Kel Nagle, um, Billy Dunk, um, and I'm thinking of someone else as well. But had such good names and won so many
But Bruce
tournaments.
Crampton, right?
He, he was probably a little after those guys. I
Yeah, a
did
little
play
after
with
those
Kel.
guys.
I did play with Kel in the New Zealand Shell Open at Titirangi, and it was his last four-round tournament that he was going to play. And I played with him and John Lister uh, in the I think it was either the
Mm.
third or the fourth round. And I can remember coming off the 16th tee. He was hitting the persimmon. We're all playing persimmon, but I grabbed the driver out of Kel's hand. And I said, "That's a nice old club." And he said, "I won the British Open, was runner-up in the US Open with that." And I said, "You better take that back, Kel." and the old McGregor persimmon driver.
Yeah, well, McGregor made some great stuff, and Spalding did. They made some great stuff. George Knudson was a Spalding guy. Played all the Spalding. It's interesting the blade that George Knudson played with the bird on the ball, Spalding executive blade, and it had the shaved off toe. All the mass was like kind of shaved off the toe, very much like the Hogan Power Thrust. I don't know if you remember that iron from
Yes,
the
yes, I
early
do.
60s, and it had that shaved off toe. It was very strange, and Knudsen had the same thing. So I think Spalding just made their version of that club, really. From what I understand, that Power Thrust was the last club that Hogan himself designed. I mean, he
Right.
designed that, and then he handed over the basic designing over to I think Gene Sheely, who I think was the one designing the clubs.
Wilson made some good gear then in those days too. Wilson, Gregor,
Yeah,
Spalding.
the Wilson Dynapowers and the Wilson Hague Ultras. There's some great clubs back then. Palmer was playing the Wilson stuff,
Right.
right? And all the great McGregor blades, of course. Nicholas was playing McGregor, and you know, um,
I
yeah,
remember the
Sneed
Canadians all
was on
came
the
over.
Wilson staff. Palmer was on the Wilson. Yeah,
I
what
remember
was that?
all the Canadians came over with oh I've forgotten the brand. Oh,
Accuform.
Accuform. Yes.
Yeah,
Something I'd
yeah,
never seen with just a straight blade, straight
yeah.
piece of metal, or a,
Just a
and
straight
they're all using
straight
Acuform.
piece of metal. It was just like, yeah, yeah. They had those Accuform irons won a lot of tournaments and a lot of money up there. Yeah,
Does
very.
that still exist? Doesn't exist anymore?
I don't think so. I
Yeah.
haven't. Yeah, I don't think so. But who knows? Maybe it does exist. I don't. I'm not really up on what's going on with the modern clubs.
Yeah, sure.
I really see golf as, there's three eras now. There's the Hickory era, the Persimmon and Blade, Blada era that we played, and then the kind of, that's golf like 2.0, like Hickory 1.0, our version 2.0, and now the kind of super golf Tiger era of just, smash it and bomb and gouge and hit it a mile with a trampoline frying pan driver.
Yeah.
And in golf 3.0, and I'm a 2.0 player. I'm a persimmon player, and I'm a proud persimmon player. I'm proud to play persimmon. Um, have no problem being a persimmon player. If somebody wants to play me, let's go play persimmon. Let's play apples and apples. Let's go.
Yeah.
I still
Yeah.
play well. I don't play much
Well,
anymore, but when I
as
do
you
play,
know,
I keep my swing in
and
good shape.
as you know, golf is hitting the ball from A to B to C to D, isn't it? It's mapping your way around the course and then trying to knock a few putts in, and you can have a good score, isn't it? It's not. Yes, it does make it easy if you bomb it, but
Yeah, I mean, for me, I just grew up in an era where you had to drive it in the fairway. I mean, you had to hit it in the fairway. I mean, in our era, if you were hitting 50% of your fairways, you're probably not even on the tour.
yeah,
I mean, I don't think you're making it through Monday qualifiers if you're just
you're
hitting
missing the fee on
50% of your
having 3 iron
fairways.
in. You're nothing, are you?
Yeah, no. You had to hit it in the fairway. And to me, that's an integral part of the professional game, of the elite amateur play or professional game, is driving the ball into the fairway. And not just in the fairway, but down the correct side of the fairway, right? If the pin's back right, you drive it down the left side, open up that angle a little bit. Um, that's the more articulate version of the game, the more intelligent version of the game, the more precise version of the game. And the idea of just teeing it up and hitting it as close to the green as possible, wherever it lands, I'm better with a wedge out of the rough than I am a 5 iron from the fairway. I just disagree with that. At
Yeah,
a
no, 100%.
fundamental principle level, I disagree with that. And I
Yeah.
refuse to play that kind of golf. And I don't want to play that kind of golf. And that's why I don't play tournaments anymore, because there's no tournaments for me to play in. There's no persimmon and blade events for me to play. And if there were, I'd go out and play them, and I think I'd be very competitive still. But
I haven't heard of any, and you mentioned you had one, but that's quite a good concept. I like the idea of it.
well, yeah, we did it. We did four events. We did one in San Francisco. We did three in Las Vegas. In fact, I won the first year, won it by 7. The second year, I finished third, I think. And the last year, we had it in Vegas. Brad Hughes and I came again. We were coming down the stretch. Brad came out and played, and he was one up on me coming into 18. So it was like, we were reliving the time that we played it, head to head up in Canada, and he beat me. And but it was great. I mean, we were both still competitive and had a great time playing the old stuff.
Yeah, good.
And I
That's a great
think that
concept. I like the idea of it. I'd be tempted to try and get something up and running out here for that. I like the idea of it.
the thing is, people will say that it's an era bygone, it's a thing of the past. Um, it is until it isn't. You know, if you could say that about going to the moon. That's something we did in the past. It's a bygone era. Lunar travel or traveling to the moon. That's something that happened in the '60s and the early '70s. Haven't been
It's a
back
bit like
since. It's an
saying
era bygone.
driving a 50-year-old Ferrari or something like that. That'd be still be nice to drive, wouldn't it, or something?
Yeah, but like moon exploration as a bygone era, it's a bygone era until it's not. Until we go there again, and hey, we're going there again. And really, the thing about the persimmon and blade concept is that I think it's correct with the spirit of the game. I think it's correct for the classic courses. Everything makes
Yes.
sense. The parameters are right. The stadiums are the right size for how far the ball goes. It's all there. It's just add money and stir. That's it. If you put up $1 million purse, you think people aren't going to show up for that?
Yeah,
These
sure.
are the clubs you're going to play. We're going to give $100,000 to the winner this week, and you're going to hit this. Okay, you're going to hit
Bring it
that,
on, I say. Bring it on.
and you're gonna hit blades, right? And here's the ball. Here's going to be the high spinning ball or whatever. And if somebody puts up the prize money, I think people will sign up. I really do. If you look at auto racing, I mean, you've got the Indy cars, you have Formula One, Formula Four, you got drag racing, you've got off-road racing. You get to pick and choose which version of it you wanna
You want
play.
to attack? Yeah, sure.
Baseball, you can play baseball, you can play softball, right? How many sports where you're hitting over a net? You've got tennis, you've got volleyball, you got badminton. Now there's this pickleball. You got
Yeah.
there's which one do you want to do? The whole idea that just one version of golf for everybody is just shoved down your throat or whatever. I just disagree with that. It's not consistent with how other sports are. Other sports give you options of which to play. All the persimmon and blade needs is some kind of professional representation. Here in the United
True.
States, I mean, there is women's professional softball. I mean, I think if women's professional softball can exist, men's professional persimmon and blade golf can exist. I mean, you got more
It's a bit like
history.
it's a controlled
It's
event, isn't it?
really
Where you're
just a
using.
matter of doing it, of just putting on the tournament, getting a sponsor to throw up some money. It doesn't even have to be a lot. Even if it's just a winner take all, 10 grand or something to the winner, go out and give it a shot, right? It just has to start somewhere. I do think it's going to come back. I hope it comes back in my lifetime. We tried to get the ball rolling in 2010, 11, and 12. But I think it was a little too soon because the modern game hadn't been around that long and everybody was happy hitting the ball
Yeah.
far at that point. But here we are 30 years removed and looking back, you can see the conversation is starting to rev up again about it because now we've got 30 years of history looking back. And it's like, yeah, this isn't really making sense anymore. And with the USGA talking about a ball rollback,
Yeah.
what are they doing? They're admitting they made a mistake. They're the ones that allowed this to happen, right? I mean, it wasn't you or me.
Yeah. Sure.
They're admitting, hey, we made a mistake. We're sorry. We're going to roll the ball back. Okay. Well, I don't think they should be admitting that they made a mistake. I think they should just continue on their trajectory. The only way it's going to happen is a new organization comes in and says, hey, we're the United States Persimmon and Blade Association, and this is what we do. And these are the tournaments that we have, right?
Yeah.
It just takes it's you just have to think outside the box.
Bit like
Nobody's
Formula
going to
One,
go
like
to
you said,
jail.
they're all using the same tyre, aren't they? In Formula One, they all have to use the same tyre when they go to Formula One and things like that. So
Yeah,
same thing.
yeah. It's when we did the tournaments in Las Vegas, we played by our own rule book. We didn't use the USGA rules. We played with a one page rule book. The rules of golf were on one page.
Did you
Play
did you
the
drop
ball
over your
as it lies.
shoulder? Did you drop over
Just
over your
play it.
shoulder?
Yeah, yeah. Just play the ball as it lies. Okay. There were no drops. No drops at all. Play it as it lies. And if you were in a situation where it was unplayable, whether if you were out of bounds, your ball was lost, or you couldn't play the ball, then you could take a one-shot penalty, go back to the middle of the fairway, hike it back 30 yards, drop your ball, and get on with your round. And it worked just fine we were getting in a pro-am format, we were getting around in under 4 hours with two pros and two amateurs. You know,
Perfect.
the provisional
Perfect.
ball thing, when a guy would like hit a ball to the right, hook one over to the left, he's got 5 minutes to look for that one, 5 minutes to look for that one. He can't find either. Now he's hiking it back
Yeah.
to the tee. You can't have that. You have to
5 hour
eliminate
aim.
that.
You know, yeah.
You know that how bad that was,
Yeah.
and that would happen even at the pro level. That would happen. I
Yeah.
remembered that happening at Joondalup one time. A guy
Yeah.
hit one right, hit one left, looked 5-5, went back to the tee, another five. Now there's three groups on the tee, and
I'll
everybody's
tell
in
you
an
what.
uproar.
Yeah.
So what we did with this is easy enough. If the guy hits it right, he doesn't get a provisional ball. He goes down there. He either finds his ball, lost ball, whatever. He plays it, or if it's gone, or he can't find it, or he can't play it, you go back to the fairway, go back three clubs. When we're all hitting 7 irons in, he's back hitting a 4 iron. Nobody cares whether he drops here or whether he drops here. Nobody cares. When he's back there 30 yards hitting a 4 iron, nobody
Yeah.
cares. They really don't.
That's right.
It don't matter
Yeah.
whether he
True.
drops here or here. It don't. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
got we
No,
got
yeah, that's good.
around, and we got around in under 4 hours. Never had a problem with it. Um, and the rule book was one page.
Beautiful.
That was it.
It should be.
And
Good.
we played for real prize money, and uh, and it worked great. And nobody got arrested. The police didn't come and arrest anyone because we didn't play by USGA rules. You know, everybody thinks that the USGA, the RNA, has this control over everything. They actually don't. It's only because we agree to it. We
Yeah.
could just say, "Hey, I don't agree to this. We're doing our own thing now." You
Do our
know,
own thing. Yeah.
I mean, the purpose of the USGA and the RNA was to protect the game.
How'd they
That's
go?
their job.
Yeah.
That's what they're supposed to do. Because
Yeah.
if they're not doing that, what are they doing? What's the purpose of them? Right? Major League Baseball does not have a version of that. There's no United States Baseball Association that governs the whole world of baseball and softball and anything with a stick and a ball. It doesn't exist. There's Major League Baseball. They have their rules. There's college baseball here. They play with a metal bat and they have their rules. And there's Little League. They have their rules. And softball has its rules. There's no one ruling thing ruling everybody. And that's where I think people need to wake up and say, you know what? We're done with this. And we're going to have our new rules and our new game here. I mean, for the people that want to play Golf 2.0. And there's a lot of people that do.
Yeah.
I
100%.
mean, I've got a
Yeah.
lot of students that are hitting persimmon, and their swings are getting better, and they're playing better golf, and they're enjoying the game more because they're not forced to feel like they have to hit the ball 350 yards to be competitive. Nobody wants
Yeah.
that. Even the
No.
young
Sure.
kids that are hitting at 350 yards, 20 years from now, they're not going to like it when they're only
Yeah.
hitting at 280 yards. They're going to be outdated and done.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm 62 in a few days, in 4 days, and I can with a persimmon driver, I hit it as far as I did when I was playing on tour because my golf swing's better now. I got a
Yeah.
better swing than I did when I was, 25. I was
Yeah.
younger, but I think I may even be stronger now than I was then, actually. So I think I could still, in a persimmon and blade event, I could still be competitive. Didn't Tom Watson almost won the British Open that year? He was almost 60,
That's right.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
You
I
did.
mean, and it's good
Unlucky
to
not to
extend the careers of players.
hit a 9-iron over the back on the last, didn't he? Didn't get up and down to get in the playoff and lose to Stuart Sink, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's good for the game when you have somebody that's 20 playing against somebody that's 60. You know, you got the old guy with experience and the
Yeah.
young
Yes,
guy with
100%.
confidence and youth you know, and all that. Interesting to see that. I think
That's
that's good for the
the
game.
beauty
I
of
mean,
golf, isn't it? Such a good game in that way that it can spread over
the
such a wide.
2.0 version. Yeah, the
Yeah.
2.0 version that we played, I think, and the video that I shot with the hickory going against the steel shaft really shows that it wasn't a big leap from the hickory to the steel shaft. It wasn't a game changer. The ball didn't go farther. All it did is it allowed the players to have a more refined set where now your shafts can all have the same deflection and for
Yeah.
accuracy, right? More
Yeah.
control. Nobody should argue ball control. whether it's technique or clubs, anything that helps you hit the ball, control the ball better for your objectives, whether it's trajectory or shaping the ball, being able to control the
Yeah,
ball. But when you've got a club that's going 50 yards farther, now all the old courses don't make sense. The bunkers are not in the right place.
yeah.
It doesn't make
They're
sense.
putting in new tees
Yeah.
everywhere just to try and make the course playable
But
like it
as you
used to
know,
be.
even just moving the tees back, it changes the integrity of the hole. Like sometimes a hole would be meant to draw the ball around a corner, right?
Yeah,
But if you just stick the tee back 50 yards, now you're hitting a straight shot to the corner, where you used
yeah,
to be able to hit it out to the right and maybe sneak it around the corner,
yeah,
right? So that was the intention of the lay of the land, the bunkering, the great architects like, McKinsey did a lot of work down in Australia. All
yeah.
those thoughts, these are masterful, genius people that figured out
Yes,
how to set these golf courses up, the terrain, the mounding, the bunkering, the the lie angles coming into the greens. There's a downhill lie coming into this green. There's a bunker in the front here. What happens if the back right pin? You got to hit it down the left side. All
yeah.
that
Full
strategy and
fronts,
stuff
whatever. Yeah,
that it makes the game more interesting. It's more like playing chess as compared with playing checkers, right? Checkers is
yeah,
the
100%.
dumbed down
You
version of
had to
chess,
drive
right?
in the right place to
If you
access
were
the
a
right
chess
pin
player and I said,
positions and
"Hey,
all that sort of stuff.
yeah, I mean, if you were a chess player and they came along and said, well, we're not playing chess anymore. Everyone's playing checkers. Just the way it is, and you don't get to play chess anymore. You have to play checkers. That's where the prize money is. That's what the
Yeah,
guy next door wants to do. The guy cutting his lawn out, and he wants to play checkers. He doesn't want to play chess. He doesn't want to think about all the moves and all that. And that's what's happened to golf, and I think it's terrible. But I think the more
I
people
can.
talk about it, the more persimmon players there are out there, the more people go out. And I'll tell you what, it's fun hitting persimmon and beating people.
Yeah,
You know, I'm not saying trying to go pro against pro, but like I'll go out and play around of golf. I mean, I did this a few years ago, and I went out with persimmon and blades, and it was actually right after my dad had passed, and I took his clubs out, and I went out and played, you know, a game of golf. My dad was an avid player, and I thought, I'm going to take dad's clubs out and play. So I show up on the first tee, hitting persimmon and blades, and the guys they don't know who I am. I'm just a pickup game, I'm just signed up, They don't know who I am. These guys are looking at me like I'm just some crazy guy or something. What are you doing with those old clubs? Like what are you doing? Well, they weren't saying that. I was 7 under after 11 holes.
yeah. Good on you. Fabulous.
I mean, well, I think maybe my dad was helping me out or something, rolling some putts in or whatever. But I mean, I made some putts, obviously. But, these guys, I'm 7 under after 11 holes. These guys are, 15 over after 11 holes.
Well, I think
And they
I remember
they can't believe what they're seeing.
in playing the pro-ams, years ago, the guys, the amateurs, the 15 handicaps, they couldn't get anywhere near for distance or for accuracy. Nowadays, you go and play the pro-am, you can get a guy that doesn't play that much. He can bomb it out there with the new equipment, can't he? With not that great a technique, he's going to hit it all over the place, but he can get it out there, and it's just so
Yeah.
different. They couldn't get anywhere near when you used to be able to just hit it out of the centre all the time.
But that guy's going to shoot 80, 85, right?
Oh, 100%, yeah,
Yeah, and you're
100%.
going to go out there with persimmon and blades, and you can go out and shoot 68, 72, 74,
Mm.
whatever. I mean, you're going to still wipe these people out,
Yeah,
and it's quite a conversation piece when the round is over with. They're like, "Well, how did you do that? How
yeah,
do you do that? How do you shoot a score like that with those old archaic clubs, but actually are really good clubs?" It's just people
yeah,
don't understand that they're still really, really good clubs. They're professional. It's a professional clubs, is what they
yeah,
are.
100%.
So I don't know. It's just I'm always getting on my soapbox talking about this stuff. I'm sure people watching this are tired. John, will you just shut the hell up and go back to the hickory era or whatever? But I
I'd
think
love to
it's
come another
important to
game with
keep
you.
the conversation going. About it really. For the future of the game. I hope that at some point all it takes one person who's got some dough to say, you know what, let's do it. And you
Yeah,
do it. if you put up money, what do? You rent a golf course, right? Or how much does it cost to buy all the tee times for the week? Okay, you know, whatever. Okay, rent the golf course. With social media put out all over, we're having a tournament, $1 million or whatever. Sign up, send in, PayPal your entry fee in, I guess, or whatever. Show up. Your tee times will be listed online. And back when we were playing, you know, to find out when you teed off, you had to like go to the golf course and look on the
That's right.
sheet. You had to like,
Yeah.
or have a friend like, hey, can you tell me when I'm teeing off? Like one of you would go
Sure.
out there and say,
Mm.
oh yeah, you're off at 7:40 or you're off at. Now, I mean, how convenient. Pull out your phone,
That's right.
see
It's
when you
all
tee
there, isn't
off.
it?
Okay, it's
As
all
I
there.
said.
It's almost easier to do now. Rent the course, put up the money, play by TRGA. What we did, the TRGA rules, or you want to do USGA rules or whatever, that's fine. But I think as far as the drops and all that, I don't like it. I think there's a
Yeah,
better way
no.
to speed up play and
Get up
keep it
play, yep.
keep it going.
100%.
Set the new game in gear for the next generation of kids because I think kids are going. Of course the long hitters all love it, but could you imagine that a player like Corey Pavin would not even be recruited out of high school now because he only hit it 230 off the tee? I mean, a college coach wouldn't even look at him.
No,
It's
it's
like,
true.
won't even look at him. Yeah, they won't. I talked to a
Which,
college coach in the area. He will not recruit a kid that doesn't hit it 300 yards. If he doesn't have 120-mile-an-hour swing speed
oh,
on the
he's
launch
been, yeah.
monitor, won't even recruit the kid. That's not good for golf. That's not good for the kid. You know. So if maybe the kid's got a great short game and he can score, give him a chance.
Yeah.
Give him hope. Golf should be a
Well,
game for short hitters, medium hitters, long hitters. Every body type, right?
yeah. Well, you can play the
Look at
course many
the
ways, can't you? There's many ways to do it, John,
yeah.
isn't there? It's not just a.
Well, in the 2.0 version, yeah, that we played, right? I mean, there was I mean, my gosh, the Australian tour, we could come up with every body type and style. Mike
Yep.
Harwood, right? Wasn't he like 6'4" or something?
Yeah.
6'6", I mean,
Tall.
huge
Tall and
guy,
lanky,
right?
yes. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And then you would have like little guys like Anthony Gilligan or something, right?
Well,
Small, like
that's
a
me.
small guy
That's
that
me.
just
I'm same size as Anthony Gilligan. Anthony Gilligan.
yeah.
He's a good mate, yeah.
Yeah, so you got the smaller guy, you got the big tall guy, and then you'd have the kind of like overweight, pudgy guy that looked like he could be doing your taxes or something, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like working the
100%.
bank, and he's out there,
Yeah.
right? So you'd have
Yeah.
short, thin, short, fat, medium, tall, long legs, short legs, long arms. Everybody was represented out there.
Yes,
Every body
100%.
type, every style. Chichi Rodriguez was what, weighed 130 pounds or something, and he was like, 5'7" or 130 pounds or something. And then you had this guy George Barry was like 6'6" and weighed like 280 pounds or something. It was just like a giant. I mean, PGA Tour, you had Andy Bean, and big
Yes,
guys.
yep.
Calcavecchia, right? He's a big big guy, and Ian Woosnam
Stadler.
was 5'6".
Stadler was quite solid, wasn't he? Stadler was a.
Yeah, Stadler. They call him the Walrus. Looked like a
Yeah.
walrus. I just Corey Pavin was thin, smaller guy. Didn't hit it far. Won the U.S. Open and one of the great amateur players and great pro career. I just think that that's better for the game for everybody. I think
Yes.
it was just perfect the way it was. It didn't need to be messed with. Now we have this new version, which is fine if people want to play that. That's fine. Here's the new version. If they came out with cricket and they said, okay, we've got this titanium bat and it's bigger, and we're getting rid of the ball, we're going with a polypropylene, ball. I mean, however that would change the game of cricket, you would know better than me. But I'm sure it would radically change the game if the ball was going, 50
Out of the
yards
grounds,
farther
yeah.
or something.
Well, they're going to start making the stadiums bigger and all that sort of stuff. Are they?
Yeah, and then, but if you want to do that, then there's that version of it, right? You can do that, right? But don't get rid of the old game.
Yeah,
It's like keep the
100%.
old game and then add the new one. So
Like
you
they've
have
done with
everyone should
baseball.
be happy.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, baseball, I mean, amateur baseball is softball. The amateur version is softball, and people play softball. Your weekend guy plays softball. He doesn't play. No softball players under the illusion that they're playing Major League Baseball. Nobody playing softball is looking at a 95-mile-an-hour curveball.
Yeah, no.
They know that. They know that,
They're
and that
passing
whatever
quickly.
version of that in cricket, I'm sure in cricket, they know they're not looking at the pro guy, the pro bowler, right? That's it's too much, right?
Yeah.
So there should be a version of it to keep everybody happy. And if they want to grow the game, then grow the game. Let there be different versions of the game to grow, and maybe the senior tour uses the frying pan drivers. The amateurs use that. The springboard drivers, the LPGA maybe uses that, right?
Have you
And then
got
the
much
men's tour uses
availability for
the
persimmon drivers and stuff? Is there much
for the
availability for
pros.
persimmon drives?
Well, I mean, you could go on eBay right now, and I'll guarantee you there's probably 1,000 of them on there right now on eBay. Now, if you had a pro tour, a persimmon, and let's just say you had a persimmon pro tour, and if you had a persimmon pro tour in Europe, in the United States, Australia, Asia, how many persimmon drivers would you need for those, just the pro players? What, 1,000? Right? No more than that, I don't think, for the pros. In fact, there's guys making them. There's guys making persimmon drivers now. In fact, I'm making them.
When I did my apprenticeship,
I'm working with the
I
guy
had
who's
to,
making them with.
I had
Yeah.
to shape
So I
shape
mean, they can be
the
made.
club, put a base plate on, had to put an inlay in, had to put the whipping or the binding on. That was all part of my apprenticeship many years ago. Shaft it, put the
Yeah.
pin in.
Yeah. I mean, think how many of those great craftsmen that knew how to
Yes.
refinish clubs and set them up and make them and all that, and that was a real skill set, like you said. It was part of your apprenticeship to learn all that
Yeah.
stuff, right? I don't see that like just getting rid of that skill set. I don't see that as a good thing. That should still exist, at some level. You know, have somebody working on that stuff. So
Well,
yeah, there's been
nowadays it's just a
a
matter
lot
of
of things about it.
heating them up, isn't it? Popping them off, putting a new shaft in. The old days, you had to. When I finished my apprenticeship, we used to have the pins in the irons. You had to take the pin out and reshaft it with that, put the pin back in, and refinish the head where the pin had been, and then buff the head or shine the head
Yeah,
back to normal. Yeah. All that's gone, isn't it?
I
It's
mean
just
that's.
heat them up, pop them off now, put another one on, or throw them in the bin even.
I mean the craftsmanship that's gone into this is a sunburst Hogan driver from the late 50s.
That looks in good nick.
Yeah, and it's in beautiful, beautiful condition. I mean, it really is just a work of art, really. And when you look down at this thing to hit it, it's really just a beautiful thing to see. It's like a nice piece of fine furniture or something down there, and
Sure.
it's an organic product made of wood, and it's beautiful to look at. It feels great when you hit it, and it's something that's unique to every player. Every persimmon driver is a little bit different, right? So it I think there's a connection that you can have with that club that you can't really get with just something that's just off the shelf that everybody has the same thing or whatever. So but there's just other
Yeah.
levels to it. If you like that version of golf, you should be able to play it, enjoy it, compete. But I do believe it needs professional representation at some level
Yeah.
because that gives it credibility. And when people say, "Well, I want to play what the pros play," well, then there's motivation to do that. But if you don't have professional representation, then it becomes just kind of a nostalgia trip. It's like, oh, the old days, like the Hickory events or stuff. It's like they wear the knickers, they drive the old car, the Model T out to the course, and it's
Yeah,
a
right.
nostalgia, a social
Yeah,
event, right? Let's
yeah.
have a couple scotches and you know play the old clubs and have fun. But I think credibility comes with the professional representation. You need some prize money, you need a real chance to go out there and play it at the professional level. And that's what I want to see happen. We tried to get that going, but I think we were a little early to the party in 2010. It hadn't been long enough, but I think now it's time.
That's
Um,
something
I
Brad's
think,
into as well, is he? Brad Hughes is into that sort of thing.
well, yeah, Brad came out and played the TRGA event in Vegas and supported it and won the tournament. And I think he did a TRGA event in Australia in Melbourne, or maybe it was over in Perth or something. I think he said that he did
Oh,
one
okay.
down there a few
Right.
years back. Yeah, I know he's on board with all this stuff too. But he has to teach the modern game to people and stuff, and it's hard because you can't if you're just a persimmon teacher like me. It's tough to make a living. Because how many are there? I mean, I'm kind of the only one teaching it in the planet right now. So, but
Do you
it's a
think
different technique. It's a different
the
skill
long driver,
set.
the 46-inch driver, is affected with the 430 path? Does that have any issues with the 430 path? Do you think having that long driver?
I do. I think it's very difficult when the club gets that long. Yeah,
Yeah.
very very hard. Yeah, to get the longer the club is, it's just it just starts getting out of control. You know, I think that's why Jack Nicklaus, from what I understand, he capped his drivers at 43 inches. He was one of the longest hitters of his era, but he knew the control was more important. You start getting it a little bit too long, and it just starts
Yeah.
getting a little bit out of control. You know, I mean, I've experimented with clubs that were longer over the years. I've tried all sorts of stuff, and it's like a 45-inch driver, and it's just you're just not going to be able to control it. At least
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to. I can hit it farther, yeah, hit it farther, but controlling
Well,
it,
not getting it on the fairway,
I
yeah,
spent,
as much.
I spent too much time playing in Australia and Canada, having to hit it straight. The guys that were winning all the money down there were straight hitters. I mean, that's what I remember. I don't remember any wild hitters cleaning up in Australia. I never saw
No, I
that.
think that's fair point. Fair point.
I mean, do you know any of the wild hitters down there that were winning lots of tournaments?
No. No, I'm a Sydney person. I always thought the guys in Sydney tended to be longer hitters than the guys from Melbourne because they were it was even tighter down there. The emphasis down in a lot of those Melbourne courses was fairway, 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 like you said, and then not only fairway but positioning yourself in the fairway was much more important than say in Sydney. Sydney you could get away with it. So I always thought a lot of the guys that come from Sydney were longer, but not as straight. So it was interesting. Years ago, I thought that.
Yeah. And what about the guys from Queensland?
Probably the same. They wouldn't be anywhere near as tight or as the courses from Melbourne. So I'd say that Sydney, Queensland would be similar. It's totally changed nowadays, but I used to think that years ago that the guys from Sydney tended to be longer than the guys that, in general, that was. Not with everyone, of course, but in general, the emphasis was much more keep it in play in Melbourne because it's positional golf and some of those great courses, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, we should probably wrap it up here. We've been on for a while.
No, it's been good, John. It was nice to meet you. I don't know if I met you before, but it was nice to
I
have
know, I
a
know
chat.
we had to have met before. We were just young, same age,
Mm,
journeyman guys playing on the tour. Just so much going on
yeah, it's
um,
good.
at that time. But
I'll,
it's
uh,
so
I'll
again just fascinating that you were in that clubhouse when Greg Norman was doing that thing and to fly the guys up to Japan so they could go to Europe and he could play the last round. I mean,
yeah.
Sometimes when I think of that, it's so clear in my mind, that when he did that, and then here you are, you're in the room, what a
Yeah, it
small
was in
world,
that
right? And
old style members locker room in beautiful locker room in at Royal Melbourne.
yeah, yeah, I remember that. It's just like it wasn't that long
Well,
ago, really.
you've caught my interest with a lot of your content, so I'll keep watching and maybe we can chat again soon.
Anytime, anytime. And yeah, go through some of the stuff, and I know we just talked in the in the recess a little bit, but if you feel like your swing has deteriorated a bit from the lightweight gear, and you're interested in working with some of the concepts that
Okay.
I've been putting out on there, then I'd be more than happy to just send you the material and get you working on some of that stuff because I think it's really helped out a few of the guys. I helped Bradley Hughes out a lot. When he came to see me, and he
Okay,
had
cool.
the same thing had happened. He went with the lightweight gear, it started to destroy his swing and all that, and then we worked on stuff, and he helped him out, and Paul Davenport, from New Zealand. Same thing, the lightweight gear that kind of destroyed his swing over time, and now he's back working
Okay.
on some
I
drills
appreciate
to
that, Jim.
get
That's
the
very good
strength
of you.
back quicker and the heavier gear, you know. So
Oh, great. No, I'll
um,
definitely take you up on that. That's very good of you.
yeah, no, yeah, no problem, no problem. So okay, Peter. Well, what time is it there where you're at?
Mine now is 6:15 p.m. 6:15 in the evening on Friday, the 2nd of January, second day of
Yeah,
2026.
and it's 11:14 January 1st here.
Yes, so I thought, yes, the first day of the year, yes.
Yeah, well, you got to celebrate New Year's sooner than we did, so
Yeah, we're one of the first, aren't we, down here in Sydney or
yeah,
Australia?
yeah.
All right, well, you take
Okay,
care.
well, we'll do it again.
Enjoyed it.
And don't hang up here until we get this uploaded, and I'll
All
let you
right,
know. Okay, I'm gonna stop. All right, goodbye, everybody, and we'll see you soon.